Well, the haters gonna hate, 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 and the fakers gonna fake, 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 baby. I'm just gonna make, making luck, a Dominion podcast. Welcome to Making Luck, a Dominion podcast.
Are we starting? Welcome to Making Luck, a Dominion podcast. I'm Jake.
Hey, Jake. How you doing?
So this is actually what we're going to use. All right.
Yeah.
I'm doing good. How are you, Adam?
I'm okay. This episode is, I think, the longest mini-sode ever, right?
Yeah, it's quote-unquote mini-sode. So what makes something a mini-sode, Adam?
That we don't do the kingdom at the start and the end.
Yeah, the only thing that we're calling a mini-sode is just something we recorded in advance. And that's this, because this is all of our takes on Renaissance right when the set came out, and we weren't allowed to talk about them.
Yeah, so I finally got the okay from Donald X that he's okay for us as playtesters to release our opinions on the cards. And so we recorded this right after the set came out. We actually aired in a mini-sode that week so we could record this. And here we are releasing that now as a mini-sode. Nice.
Now, I want to give some caveats to this. This was right when the set came out. Bear in mind, if we did this episode again today, it would be very different. This was like we hadn't really had much like competitive experience with the cards other than like what we could play test IRL against each other. So bear in mind,
almost all that was 3-player games too.
A lot of them were. We played some 2-player as well, though. So, like, a lot of these are quite hot in terms of takeage. Yeah,
there are 4 card-shaped objects that I would change the ratings of. I was actually surprised at how little that was, but, I would do some things different. But, these are the first impressions. And at the start of next episode, along with the kingdom we did from last time, we'll address what those changes are. But I don't want to do it here because this episode's already really long.
Yeah. So, again, enjoy the hot takes and us just going through the set. Bear in mind that many of our opinions may have changed. In next episode, we're going to summarize anything from last episode that was just totally off base in our opinion as of today.
Yeah, and importantly, let us know what you think. If you think a take was particularly hot, let us know. It's very possible we would agree with you, but, I still want to know about it. I think
totally.
We'll address some of the popular opinions or maybe the hotter takes. We'll take care of that at the start of next episode.
Yeah, sounds good. In the meantime, we hope you enjoy this one. It is quite long, but these episodes are always, I think, pretty interesting when a new set comes out. We get to just go through and talk about it in the scope of Dominion.
Yeah, for sure. And hit us up.
Like a State of the Union address.
Yeah, it's just like that.
Yeah.
Actually, it's frighteningly similar now that I think about it.
Yeah.
So anyway, hit us up. You can go to adamhorton.com, find links to all sorts of stuff, leave a comment in the comments section, Discord forums, all of that stuff. Let us know what you think. We hope you like the episode, and we'll see you next week.
All right, I'm ready to do the actual intro now.
Nice.
Was that?
Yep.
All right.
Nice.
Hey everybody, I am Jake, and with me always is Parker, and yep, that's baby Adam for anybody who is not versed in Adam's life, but with me here is Adam as well.
Hey, I'm holding currently the Dominion World Champion for 2035. He's going to join us as a special guest. Co-host on this episode of Making Luck, a Dominion podcast.
Yeah, it's kind of weird to think about that just being a tiny person, and also the fact that in your arms you're carrying your biological purpose for life. But anyway,
one of my biological purposes for life.
Well, that's the main thing that you're here driven to do physically, right? Scientifically.
One of the it's on that list, and it might be at the top of the list. I haven't really thought about it too yet.
Well, if we want to rank them top 10, actually we could rank them on a scale of 1 to 10.
0 to 10, Jake.
Right, 0 to 10. So speaking of that, we're going to be talking about the Renaissance expansion on this episode of Making Luck, and we're not going to be able to release it right away because these are our hot takes, and we are not quite allowed to to put these out yet, but by the time you hear these, we will have become a little older and a little wiser with these cards. But in the meantime, is it hot in here, or is it just these takes?
That was good. Although I want to point out that I don't really anticipate being wrong about anything I'm about to say. So I mean, I think this is just solid gold. At least my ratings. Now, if your ratings are different than mine, obviously they're going to be incorrect and factually wrong. But
by the margin of by which they're off, yeah.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. Okay.
Because 0 to 10 power level means so much.
Dominion cards.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what we're going to be doing, is rating these from 0 to 10. We're going to go through every card in the set. And we should talk a little bit about what it means when we rate a card the way we rate it. Yeah, it's just so we're not throwing numbers out in the air.
Well, I mean, that really is all we're doing, right?
Yeah.
Like, this is completely subjective.
Sure.
And, like, Jake and I have talked at length about what this rating scale actually means.
we certainly have talked at length about it.
Yeah, and, like, I feel like what I rate a 10 is mostly what Jake rates a 9. Like, pretty much all of what he calls a 9 is what I would call a 10. Like, we talk about the card, and we agree about the card, but he calls that a 9, and I call it a 10. So keep that in mind, whatever that means.
Yeah, so, like, the thing is that when I'm rating these cards from 0 to 10, what it means to me is that the average card in Dominion, the expected value that I get when I spend at a certain price point and get a card, is a 5 to me. I'm not trying to normalize it on a bell curve, but
you are.
Well, but it's going to it's going to produce a bell curve that way, because that's what I think the average of impact of a Dominion card is. And if the average impact of a Dominion card moved to the right, that would just be the new 5. So that's what it is to me.
5.
Like, in general, by my rating system, all cards should be mostly 5s. So for me, a 10 is, like, as good as a Dominion card can be. A 10 is, like, Donate, or King's Court, or Goons.
Or maybe not King's Court.
Well, maybe that's subjective, yeah. So, I mean, all of this is. But, Adam, maybe you want to talk a little bit about... Oh, so, we talk about my rating system is basically based on 5, and then that's average. So anything that has distinguished itself beyond 5 or below 5, that's where I start thinking about these things.
Sure. I would say that, I don't know, I would assign, like, a phrase to each sort of number, and I've done this in the polls that I've conducted of, having a lot of people rate things from 0 to 10, whatever that means.
Yeah.
And so, like, a 10 is just game warping. It completely makes all of the strategy and tactics revolve around that card.
Yeah.
A 9 is like, this is really good. It's going to play a big role in pretty much any deck and enables lots of decks. And then, like, 7s are, this has a lot of synergies. And then 5s are like, well, this is okay in most decks, or maybe pretty good in a few decks. And then, you get farther down, and 3s are like, well, this isn't great, and when it's better than not getting it, it's not that much. And then 1s and 0s are like, this card bad.
Right. Yeah, so, I mean, I don't think there are any 0s left in Dominion after 2nd edition, right? By either of our scales.
I will redact the 0 that I gave Night Watchman from Nocturne. It's not a 0.
Oh, right, you gave Night Watchman a 0. I think,
and I would give Transmute a 1, actually, so, yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to call Harvest a 0.
Actually, wait, Navigator, I think, might be a 0.
Well, anyway, so none of this is important, because none of those are from Renaissance, but so that we can get into Renaissance, we are going to first talk about the Kingdom cards, and any Kingdom cards that have a relic, we're going to talk about the relic with it, and then we're going to talk about the projects.
That's right.
Yeah.
Sorry, Parker was getting a little bit excited, but now he's good. He's good.
Yeah, so the first card that we have is called Acting Troop. And Acting Troop is really simple and straightforward. It just says +4 villagers and trash this. Now, what are villagers? Villagers are these tokens that you get. They're a little bit like coffers or coin tokens, except that they can be spent on actions the way that coffers can be spent on dollars. So you save them between turns, and it's a village effect. hence villagers.
Yeah, I want to point out that every single card that gives you a villager, no matter how it gives you that villager, that's a village. Because just having a villager token gives you the village effect. You can play more than one terminal action in a turn because you have that token. And that's important because, like, even if it's hard to get that villager, you're still doing it, and the villager gives you that effect. And I want to say that it's, like, even stronger than, like, having the card village in your deck, because you can have that action whenever you want. You're never going to waste it. You don't have to draw it with something else. I know Parker is getting upset just thinking about that. But it's really strong. Like, just like how coffers are really strong compared to coins. The same thing with villagers. All right, buddy. So yeah, acting troop. What'd you give it, Jake?
So I gave acting troop a 5. I think that acting troop. It's okay, buddy. Here you go. I think acting troop is average in terms of what I expect a 3-cost to do when I buy it. So the thing about villagers is that normally, before you shove a bunch of terminal payload in the deck and you start having these amazing turns, you need to build enough deck control to line it up with your villages and have the villages in it. But the villager tokens have this special property, kind of like Coin of the Realm, of not really needing to be able to collide with the terminal payload that you're trying to enable with it. So you get to build your deck out of order a little bit, I find, when you have access to these villager tokens. So it's pretty good to be able to do that. It's tricky with acting troop, though, because you do have to buy it and then shuffle it in and then play it, whereas you're going to find later there are some of these that'll give you these villagers more immediately so that you can over-terminal more freely. So you can't quite go nuts with acting troop the way you can with some of these other ones we're going to talk about, but I'd say it's a pretty good village. I'm giving it a 5 out of 10, even though it's only useful the one time after you buy it.
So yeah, I gave this a 7 out of 10. Most villages I give like a 7 or an 8. And you know, this isn't a village because it's limited use. On the other hand, I think it's still really good. Like, just spending an extra 3 in a buy on this every once in a while and then having to draw it every once in a while, like, I would say in exchange for the flexibility of having villagers instead of like a card that you have to line up with stuff, it's really good. 7 out of 10.
Yeah. Sounds good. Cool. So the next card is going to be Border Guard, and maybe Adam, you want to read this one?
Sure. It's a 2 cost, and it gives you +1 action. It says reveal the top 2 cards of your deck, put one into your hand, and discard the other. If both were actions, take the lantern or the horn. And so the lantern and horn are both artifacts that you can get. So you can have both of them potentially. It's not like they're on different sides of the same card or anything. So you get to pick which one you take. Let's do it with the horn. So the horn says once per turn, when you discard a border guard from play, you may put it onto your deck. So you get to scheme 1 border guard. And then lantern says your border guards reveal 3 cards and discard 2. And then there's the clause about it takes all 3 of them being actions to take the horn. So all of them have to be actions in order to get the other one. Both of these are, minor little improvements on your border guards if you have the artifacts.
And I don't think that the artifacts are really a big part of Border Guard. I mean, they're a lot of the text of Border Guard, but I don't think that they're actually a big part of what the card does. Now, when you talk about a 2-cost card, you really, a lot of the time, are talking about using a spare buy on it. Usually, really, what a 2-cost card costs is a buy. It's not really the money that you're spending. It's just you buy this because you have a buy lying around and you didn't have the money to afford whatever 5 to whatever cost you actually wanted. So, as far as those cards go, the value you need to get out of a 2-cost really just needs to be more than nothing. And I think that this one's a little ahead of the curve in that respect. This is a non-trivial amount of deck control that you're getting. You think about the fact that you get to look at 2 cards and choose which one to go into your hand. That's the cycling effect of drawing 2 cards. Obviously, you don't get the other to draw 2 cards literally, but it's I think pretty powerful in terms of 2-cost cards.
Yeah, like if you're gonna ask what does this card actually do for me, the answer to that question is cycling. So we have the whole episode on cycling, where the whole point is you want to play your best cards more often, and ideally the border guard reveals a good card and a bad card, or one card that's better than the other card, and so you get to skip the bad card. If you have like maybe 7 coppers and 3 estates in your deck, maybe some decks out there do that. You have a few border guards, and you get to skip a lot of these coppers and estates, and you get to find your good cards instead, and you get to play them more often. And so that's what this is doing for you.
And the thing is that it's doing that all game. And I mean, I know that you could kind of say that about any card you buy, but it's actually a really non-trivial amount of value that you get out of this one 2-cost buy. I think that any board where you don't need to hit 5 or 6 really quickly, which is not most boards, don't get me wrong, you want to hit 5 a lot of the time, but like I think you open with this pretty commonly, because you have some other cards you want to play, like a junking attack or a trasher, and the silver's nice because it helps you hit 5 or 6, but if that's not a priority, I think you take a border guard instead and be pretty happy about it.
That's not really the way I evaluate it. So like maybe you're right, but that's not how I get there. The way I get there is I ask myself, well, if I'm going to consider opening with the card, then the other thing I'm opening with better be really stinking good.
Yeah, sure. Like
so
I'm talking about like a Masquerade or a Jack of all trades.
I was just going to say Jack of all
trades.
trades.
Oh, were you really? Yeah.
Nice.
Nice.
Yeah.
I'm not going to, yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
I'll high-five the baby.
Yeah, good call. Nice.
Yeah, all right.
So, so you can evaluate it that way, but more I'm thinking, like, if there's not trashing, if I can't get rid of those coppers and estates, then if I get a lot of border guards, it can sort of mitigate that. It can act as almost as good as trashing.
Yeah, which speaks to how good at cycling this card is for its cost too, because usually when you're talking about using cycling instead of trashing, you're talking about really intensive cycling to be able to get the same effect.
Yeah, I would rather have some border guards in my deck than a Sage, for example.
Yeah, no,
I think this does a better job than
yeah.
Sage.
Actually, I think a lot of the time I might buy this over Sage. I mean, it depends on a lot, obviously.
I think Sage is slightly better than the opening, but then past that, give me some border guards, man.
Yeah, no, and the other thing is that it does have these relics that can make it a little bit better.
Which one do you think is better, the horn or the lantern? I think it's the horn, and I don't think it's close. I don't think the lantern is that fantastic. Like, yeah, it's fine, but like the horn is actually good, and the lantern is just kind of there.
Well, I mean, the thing is that by the time you get these, your deck is so action dense that it kind of implies you need that deck control a little less. So these both make Border Guard a little better at keeping your deck consistent. But if you reveal 2 actions with your Border Guard, I'm not saying it never happens where you wouldn't benefit from these, but like I said, these are not really what the card does. I think that Border Guard is mostly about the thing that it just says on the card, and then these relics are a little bit of cherry on top. Also, I do want to say the art's pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm actually seeing the art for most of these for the first time as we're looking at them.
Look at her.
This one has a girl in it, so that's, I guess, more common these days than it used to be in Dominion.
And she's not
Hashtag me too.
She's not like some concubine lady. She's like got a sword and she has a horn and she's like in the dark here and she's, I don't know, whispering a command.
Oh, is something. That's the same? That's the same.
Yeah, it's the same
lady
lady
in the lantern.
Yeah,
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah,
that's pretty sweet.
Art, I'm gonna give an 8 out of 10.
Oh, I gave Border Guard 5 out of 10.
Oh yeah, I gave it a 6. I think this card is above average, so it gets a 6.
Well, there you go. And you know what? Like, the fact that we rated these one different, or Jake rated it one higher than me.
Yeah, we think it's the same card. We just have different rating systems.
Yeah,
and
like
values.
that doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Like, we could be 2 apart and not have any fundamental disagreements on the card.
Yeah,
so,
totally.
like, I don't really think we're saying anything different here, but I gave it a 5, and Jake gave it a 6.
Yeah. Whee! I think it's about average. Adam thinks it's just average. He hates Border Guard.
5 out of 10
cargo
does
ship.
not mean average.
We have the cargo ship, which is an action duration. That's right. This set brings back duration cards.
They kind of all have since Adventures.
Yeah, that's true. It gives you +2 coins, and it costs 3. So cost 3 gives you +2 coins. Once this turn, when you gain a card, you may set it aside, face up on this. At the start of your next turn, put it into your hand. Now, I think that this is super strong. I am just gonna not bury the lead here. I gave this a 7, and if you remember, like each one above 5 for me is like a standard deviation in value above what I expect the card to do. This is a really high value purchase. I think that opening with this is going to be super common and super powerful.
So I gave it a 6, and I want to point out, so like as of this moment, as of this morning when we're recording this, I opened up a poll of so people could respond and give their first impressions for the Renaissance cards. And I've taken a look at the people who have responded within 10 hours or so after I put the thing up.
Yeah.
Which, is not a very good sample size, and a lot of these people are only seeing, like, they saw Cargo Ship for the first time, like, a minute before they filled it out. So, like, this doesn't mean much, but the ratings for Cargo Ship that I've seen so far are lower than what I think this is. A lot of people are giving this, like, a 3 or something.
This is super powerful.
This is definitely better than a 3. So the upside is you open with this card, you play it on turn 3 or turn 4, you hit 5, you buy a 5er, and you get to play the 5er next turn. It's better than top decking it because you don't even have to draw it next turn. You just 6-card hand and the 5er's in it. It's super great.
So the other thing is, one, obviously opening with a silver, a terminal silver even, is usually a pretty good thing to do because it helps you hit 5 to 6. And like Adam said, it lets you get that cycling effect to that 5 to 6 cost immediately. I think that it's good in the opener for a lot of the same reasons that gear is good in the opener, and we all know how amazing gear is. I know that this is a different card, it does different things, but it kind of strikes me as this weird hybrid between gear and develop that doesn't draw cards or trash cards.
Yeah, so it's just like that.
Yeah, it's just like that.
It's
but
gear develop.
The fact that you get to, for this super low opportunity cost, the way I draw a connection to develop is that it's got this really low opportunity cost that whatever else you would open with, you could just open with this instead and then have that thing for next turn. You could buy it if you really need it. So the fact that you get to just play it next turn, it's so versatile and really ahead of the pack as far as terminal silvers go. I think that opening with this is going to be a pretty standard move. I think that not opening with this is going to need to have some compelling reason, like maybe you could open with gear, or maybe you got to open with something else that's really powerful instead.
I think the main reason why you wouldn't open with this card and wouldn't get this card is if your terminal space is really tight. If I'm going to open with another terminal, I'm going to feel less good about opening with Cargo Ship if I care more about playing that other terminal.
Yeah.
Right? Now, maybe it was a trasher and I don't care and I get the Cargo Ship anyway. But if terminal space is going to be tight, which it is, a lot of games, then Cargo Ship is going to get a little less good. On the other hand, this pulls its weight in terms of terminal space in a lot of cases.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that you could get to play a 5-cost action on turn 4 when you didn't open 5-2. That's really
good.
That's really strong indeed.
Really stinking good.
A lot of the time you talk about like how some games feel like they're won or lost on the opener because an opponent gets a 5-2 or whatever. Like this just completely mitigates that. 100%. 100%. 100%.
55%.
Yeah, so I think that this is really strong. I think it's well above the curve in terms of 3-cost cards and terminal silvers. So I gave it a 7 out of 10.
Sweet.
Which you end up.
I gave it a 6.
6, yeah. All right. Cool. So next up we have what's this card again?
Okay, I guess I'll read this stupid thing. So I'm not really a fan of it. Anyway, this is Ducate. It's a 2-cost treasure.
Yeah.
It gives you $0 when you play it, but it gives you coffers and a buy. And then it says when you gain this, you may trash a copper from your hand. Let me just get this right out in the open. Donald has alluded to a certain playtester that really doesn't like this card. Hi. It's me. And like the thing is, like, the card is fine, right? Because it's Candlestick Maker, and Candlestick Maker is fine. But it's Candlestick Maker, man! Like, I understand that this is yellow and Candlestick Maker's in action, and I understand that I can make an exhaustive list of all the ways that they're different, but I don't frickin' care!
Yeah.
I don't frickin' care! Like, we had an opportunity with this set to make a card that has coffers and give something new to the people in the expansion. And instead, you're getting another Candlestick Maker. Is that bad for the game? No. Candlestick Maker's a fine card, and if it shows up twice as often, great. Good times. GG. On the other hand, this could have been something else that was unique, and there were a lot of ideas. And the reasons for this being in the set over any one of those, I'm not going to get into. If Donald chooses to share them, you can read the secret history. I don't think they hold any water. I think the game would be better if we had a different card than this. With that said, this has an ability that Candlestick Maker doesn't have. You get to trash a copper when you buy the card, or gain the card, which is really, really great. And also, the fact that this is a treasure makes it better than a non-terminal action. I know people, that point is up for debate, and I understand there are cases where that's not true, where you'd rather have a non-terminal action. However, overall, being a treasure is much better than being a non-terminal action. Draw to X is highly overrated. It's not good. There we go. I've got it all off my chest. What did I give Ducket? Your head is blocking the ratings here. I gave it a 5 out of 10. Great. Good times. I'm done talking about this stupid card.
So, I don't mind Ducket with the same passion that Adam seems to mind it.
Very special.
I do have a very similar opinion to his, so on Ducket, I agree pretty much with everything he said, with the caveat that I don't feel quite as strongly about it.
Parker agrees too.
Yeah, you tell him, Parker. So, this is basically Candlestick Maker Part 2, Electric Boogaloo. But the card itself, I mean, let's just evaluate that. I think it's below average in general, like, even among 2-cost cards. Coffers are good, and buys are good, and the fact that this could be a Candlestick Maker that doesn't take up a spot in your deck by trashing a copper to make way for itself is good, but that effectively would cost 3, not 2, and that competes with silver. And there are going to be times when you would want this over silver before the buy is relevant, just because the coffers are good for smoothing and spiking. But I think that's super rare. I think that the main use case for this is when you care about the cost of cards in your deck, that you just want 0-cost cards out of your deck and things to cost 2 instead.
Really? I think the main use case is if you care about a buy.
Right. I mean, that's going to be a thing too, but I don't know. I think that this card is below average by a fair margin, so I give it a 3 out of 10.
What would you give Candlestick Maker out of 10?
Probably about a 3.
Oh, no way. Okay, great. Can we move on to the next one now, please, and thank you?
Yes, we can.
Good times.
The next card is Experiment, and Experiment is a 3-cost action, and it reads +2 cards and +1 action, and return this to the supply. When you gain this, you gain another experiment. And that one doesn't then come with another experiment, so it doesn't chain infinitely, but whenever you gain this in any way, you actually get 2. But with the caveat that this is a lab that you only get to use once.
Sure. What did I give this thing? A 6 out of 10. Woo! 6 out of 10.
So I don't think it's above average. I actually give it a 4 out of 10. I think it's a little bit below average. I think that
When you say I think it's above average, that's not what I'm saying. I think the average for Dominion cards is higher than a 5, just for the record.
So I think that this is pretty good for those boards or those decks where you want to get to a big hand like one time, because you want to set up a big mint, or you want to get to trash 2 estates with trade, or set up your forge or cemetery, what have you. And outside of that, there's this fun new variant on what we call the Village Idiot, which is the guy who just buys a bunch of villages and doesn't realize he's not doing anything. I think that you can really easily do that with Experiment too. I saw a lot of people doing this during preview week. You just buy a bunch of experiments and you don't realize
6 and 2 buys. What are you gonna get?
Bunch of experiments. You don't realize that your deck isn't going anywhere in the process. So, yeah, I gave this a below average 4 out of 10, and not saying obviously it's a really good card while it's in your deck. I'm saying that spending $3 to get this for a turn or 2 turns or whatever is a below average investment. So that's what I'm saying, 4 out of 10.
So I think the comparison to Expedition is appropriate to make.
Sure.
Because it costs you 3 and a buy, and then you end up drawing 2 extra cards. And I think in general, this is worse than Expedition.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say is I think Expedition's better than this.
I think it definitely is.
You get it on demand. You don't have to shuffle the Expedition into your deck and then
hope to draw it right away,
you get to time the Expedition with when you know your card is coming up. That's the big hand.
And I understand this is different, right? Like, you can gain this with a workshop, and that gets card seduction, and I don't have to get hit really hard by militia attack. I understand it's different. And for a while, I was kind of salty about this one the same way as Ducat, but then I was like, this is just a Kingdom card. Like, not every card in the set is going to have coffers. We're not, like, missing an opportunity to do anything better. And Experiment's fun, right? I mean, Expedition is a fun event. Experiment is a fun card. You buy it over silver when you don't want a million silvers in your deck, and maybe you want to draw some cards. It's a good time.
Yeah,
6 out of 10. That's right, Parker. You tell him. You let him know.
Yeah, so the next card that we're going to have is Flag Bearer.
Could you read that one?
Yeah, we got this. So Flag Bearer is a 4-cost action that gives plus $2, and that's all it does. It just gives plus $2. But when you gain or trash this, and that's important, gain or trash, take the flag. What does the flag say? The flag says that when you are drawing your hand, plus 1 card. So it is an effective hireling for most intents and purposes. You get to draw an extra card every turn, and obviously if you're getting discard attacked, it's worse, whatever. But you will see this passing from player to player as they gain and trash flag bearers. So what do you think about this card, Adam?
Well, I gave it a 5 out of 10. I think this is a really fun card, and I think having the flag and just letting your opponent keep the flag without contesting them on it, well, that's certainly really good. But in reality, like, the flag's going to pass around. You won't have it all the time, and when you have it, you're going to be really happy that you have it. And then you're going to have all of these flag bearers in your deck, and hopefully you can trash those things.
Right, that's the thing, is that the flag bearer is obviously not a good card. It's supposed to be a bad card. It's supposed to be a below average weak card because it comes with the flag, and that's part of what it does. And then the opponent, you buy a flag bearer, and then the opponent buys a flag bearer, and you both have this bad card in your deck, but now he's got the flag. So it's like, what do? Do you get another flag bearer? Do you try to trash yours? I think that there are going to be plenty of times when you're fine with putting this in your deck just so you can draw an extra card next turn. So you realize that you've got 6 cards left in your draw pile, and one of them is your steward, and you want to turn that non-zero chance of that steward missing the shuffle into a 0 chance of the steward missing a shuffle. So you take the flag bearer, and maybe you get to keep the flag, and you're fine with it. I think that this can be kind of a trap, because fighting over the flag can lead to a situation like what Adam was alluding to, where both players are just trying to get this flag, and then they have a bunch of flag bearers in a deck that doesn't do a whole lot, no matter how many cards it draws. So you need to be kind of judicious about it. All those caveats aside, I think that when this is used purposefully and mindfully, I think it's a little above average. I gave it a 6, just because the flag is pretty good.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Next
up, we have Hideout.
All right, this bad boy's a 4-cost action. Gives you a card and 2 actions, just like a village. And it says, trash a card from your hand. If it's a victory card, gain a curse. So the trash is mandatory. In order to get your village effect, you need to have something you're okay with trashing. Also, this thing is not very good at trashing estates, because it needs 2 times, basically, to do it.
Right.
But it's a lot better trashing coppers, because the coppers just gonzo right away. I gave Hideout an 8.
So I gave Hideout a 6.
Wow.
I think Hideout is pretty good. I think it's above average, but I do want to say some things about it. First off, I want to say some good things about it. This art is amazing. This Van Helsing dude looks like he's going to screw you up.
That looks pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's the first time I've ever seen that art.
Yeah, I know, me too. So, at a glance, I want to say that this card looks a little stronger than it is. And it is strong, don't get me wrong. It does 2 things that you want to do pretty much every game. It gives you a village effect, and it lets you trash cards. But I think it's actually kind of bad at both of those, because you want those at such different phases of the game that using Hideout is awkward. if you have some way to trash estates along with your hideout, this is pretty good. But we have to remember that at the beginning of the game, of course, copper is the best card in your deck. You still want to trash it, but you have to have some way to get rid of the estates as well, so your deck doesn't get so much worse. So, like, you could really be hurting your econ by going for this. And, man, if you open with this as your trasher, I'm not saying that's bad, but you better not care about hitting 5 anytime soon.
So, you said you give this a 6.
Yeah.
What would you give most villages, like regular village? What would you give regular village?
Regular village, I give a 5.
Okay, so you give this slightly higher than most villages.
Yes,
I give
not...
most villages a 7. And
Yeah.
I gave this an 8. So, like, this is good as far as villages go, even though the trashing is required.
Like, I do want to give those caveats that this looks like a more powerful card than it is, because it does trash, and it's a village, and you can get it so early, because of how much anti-synergy those effects have at the phase in the game when you can get this. But...
Yeah, like, it's a little bit awkward, but like,
it's still
good.
It's still a village, and it's still thin in copper. So, yeah, it's above average. 6 out of 10.
Cool. All right, buddy. There you go.
Next up, we have a card called Improve. Now, this card is pretty interesting. It has some pretty divisive opinions, and by divisive, I mean it's got a little bit of a cult following, I find. Like, people... There seems to be a group of people who are really into this card and think it's amazing.
Some other playtesters I know are really into Improve and think it's one of the best cards in the set.
Yeah.
Why don't we read it first?
Here,
I'll do it. So it's a 3-cost action, gives you $2, and then it says, at the start of cleanup, you may trash an action card you would discard from play this turn to gain a card costing exactly 1 more than it. So you could improve the Improve itself into a 4-cost, exactly a 4-cost. Or if you played like maybe a non-terminal, like a Poacher, and then an Improve, you could choose to turn the Poacher into a 5er. If you wanted to do that. I gave Improve a 3 out of 10, and out of all the cards in the set, 3 is the lowest ranking that I gave any card. I think 2s, 1s, and 0s are maybe not the best thing for the game at this point.
Sure.
So, I mean, Improve, I think it's a fine card. I think it's good for the game. I just don't think it's very powerful, because it's really hard to get this to do really cool stuff.
I actually give it a 5. I think it's average. This does about what I would expect a 3-cost action to do. It is allowing you to effectively open 4/4 as long as you don't need to play both 4 costs the next shuffle. I know it's a weird way to put it. But I think
that's like really narrow and doesn't actually work.
Well, I think that the most common use case you're going to see for this is when you want a silver in your deck, but you want the silver because you want to hit 5 or 6, but then you want the silver to disappear. So, like, you could put an actual silver in the deck that's there forever, or that you have to trash, or you could put this in the deck that helps you hit 5 or 6, and then it's gone. And then you don't have a stop card in the way of your 5 to 6 costs that you're drawing. So I think that's going to be the most common use case for it.
I think that sounds really great. I think there's an additional requirement that, like, you need to be happy opening with a terminal card along with whatever 4 costs you also want to open with.
Yeah, that's true.
So you also need that.
I mean, I think that, like, it's also going to be pretty good when kingdoms that have 4s that you want a lot of, which are not rare. We've got, like, Caravan and Magpie and Wandering Minstrel.
The non-terminal ones. Like, those are the ones that really jump out at me.
Exactly. And then, of course, you've also got some wonky synergies that you can be looking for, like Fortress and cards that do... and Silk Merchant, which is later in the set. And then there are these cards that do really good stuff for you the first few times you play them, and then maybe you're done with them. Like, we're talking about Spice Merchant, and maybe Junk Dealer, and sometimes Jack of All Trades.
Now.
It's sometimes.
Thank you.
And cards that you... When you have those synergies, I'm going to say that this is closer to a 6. This is above average in that case. But without those, it's a little below average. Because, you know, the disappearing silver thing, it's not that great. So, this averages out to me a 5. This is good some of the time.
All right. Well, I think there's... I mean, I definitely think this is pretty far below average, if you're going to call it that. I mean, from my mind, as I said earlier, average is higher than 5 with the current state of Dominion. So, like, I think this is a decent amount below average. So there is a disagreement here between Jake and I. Jake thinks the card's okay, and I think the card's not very strong.
All right. Fair enough.
Yeah. Moving on.
Now, I think we both agree this card is a little bit stronger, yeah?
This is bonkers sauce, yeah.
Yeah, this is really good. So, Inventor is a 4-cost action that says gain a card costing up to 4, then cards cost 1 less this turn, but not less than 0. So it's kind of got the bridge effect, and it's like got the bridge wording too. So it's
So you can throne room it, yeah.
Right. It doesn't say while this is in play. It's the instance of playing the card is what causes the cost reduction. So like Adam said, you can throne it whenever that matters.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is really powerful.
This is busted. I gave it 9 out of 10.
This is super good payload. This is a card that can be your win condition to play a bunch of. I think
it's a lot like Bridge in terms of like, oh, I want to have a mega turn with this.
Yeah.
I want to gain all the provinces because I made them cost not a lot, and then gain them with Inventor. And like, yes, that is a thing you can do.
Rules clarification. By the way, the cost reduction occurs after you do the gaining. So
yeah,
you still
Inventor, you gain a 4 cost.
Yeah, and then
the second one you can gain a normal 5 cost. Etc.
Yeah. Now it's kind of like Bridge in that it's got this mega turn win condition potential, but it's a little bit worse at that because it's gaining as you go. You can't just use it all after you've done the cost reduction, but it's good at helping you build that deck in the meantime. So
I wouldn't even say it's worse at mega turning than Inventor. Like, if my goal is to get all 8 provinces in one turn, yes, Inventor is worse at that.
Yeah.
However, if I play 5 bridges, I mean, I might not be able to get more than like 2 provinces, but if I play 5 Inventors, I'm going to be able to get a lot more value in terms of like what I put in my deck. So like playing a smaller number of Inventors and having like some smaller really good turns is a lot more viable with Inventor, where Bridge is like the
kind of all in.
Yeah, like once it gets good, it's like, oh well, the game is now over, and until this point I have been struggle bussing.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that 100%. It's a little bit, if we're comparing it to Bridge, and I think that's an apt comparison because I think that's the closest thing, I think that it is a little bit worse at literally winning you the game, but a little bit better at building your deck up to that point, and it can do both.
Yeah, like this is it's a workshop, right? Games you something costing up to 4. In terms of workshop with a bonus, right? Those 4-cost workshops, or even the 5-cost workshops with a bonus. In terms of that, this bonus is real stinking good.
I gave this a 7 out of 10, which, again, if you remember, is well above average for me. So I think that this is very strong.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you gave it a 9, right?
Yeah, so there really isn't a huge disconnect.
Yeah, so
we both think this is real good.
This is very good payload.
Really good card.
This card can be your win condition. A lot of the time on the board, you need to be looking at it when you evaluate a kingdom.
For sure, and I think that happens more often than it does with Bridge.
Sure, yeah.
In my humble opinion.
Well, I think it'll be relevant more often, because like when Bridge isn't your win condition, a lot of the time you just don't buy it, because it's good at winning you the game and not that great at doing a whole lot else, whereas this can win you the game, it's not that great at winning you the game, but it's really good at doing a lot of other stuff that the Bridge can do. It's got that Swiss Army knife type feel.
Sure.
Yeah.
So, Lackeys! This is a 2-cost action. It gives you +2 cards, and then when you gain it, you get +2 villagers. Pretty simple.
Yeah, it's pretty simple and pretty good. I think it's again, when we talk about these 2-cost cards, a lot of the time we're talking about things that you spend a spare buy on. I think that maybe this is a little bit of an exception, because I could see you buying this instead of something else that you wanted.
So, I gave this a 7 out of 10. What'd you give it, by the way?
I gave it a 5. I think that in the end, this turns out to be average. I think that it's a bad card once it's in your deck, but the gaining villagers on demand is powerful enough to make this pretty good anyway.
Yeah, getting villagers on gain is really, really stinking good. It is really, really good. And that's a lot of the reason I gave this so much. First of all, I think 2 cards for $2, like, that's fine.
Yeah,
like, +2 cards is a fine card. I don't think it's all that bad.
There are actually quite a few kingdoms, thinking back, where I've bought Moat just to draw cards with Moat, because it was the only draw, and it was worth doing.
Sure, and I mean, Lackeys is definitely a lot better than Moat. I mean, it's not
Well,
fantastic.
it's a different
You don't
card.
want-
Yeah.
You don't want like 10 of these cards in your deck unless, you've got all the villagers in the world to play them. But hey, you have 20 of them if you got 10 lackeys, right? I think where lackeys gets really good is where you can trash the lackeys productively, right?
Sure.
You get the on-game benefit and then maybe remodel it into something else. That feels really good.
Yeah, no, that's pretty good indeed. I think that, for one thing, I want to say I really like this card. I think that I have a lot of fun with this card, and I had a lot of fun in playtesting with this card, experimenting with the idea that your deck kind of gets, quote-unquote, addicted to it, because you get these villagers on gain, and then you have these crappy terminals in your deck that you need a bunch of villagers to fuel.
For sure. I actually remember, like, even previous versions of this card were also really fun.
Yeah.
But the way it ended up, especially tying in with what ended up being the villagers mechanic, like, it's a really fun card. It's really good for the game. And I guess I want to point out that, like, it gives you villagers, so it is a village, right? This card is a village. Because that's what it is. And it's a good village because villagers are a really good village. Hi, buddy.
Yeah, they definitely are. I think that Lackeys is a pretty strong card, all in all. When I say pretty strong, I mean, like...
5 out of 10.
I give it a 5 out of 10. I give it about average, even though it's a bad card for the deck. Being able to get villagers when you need them is just such a strong tactic to have access to. It lets you build your deck out of order. Normally, before you put a bunch of terminal payload into the deck and start having these amazing turns, you have got to get the deck control together and get the villages, and then have the ability to line the villages up with the terminals, whereas this just kind of lets you put the payload in immediately and get greedy, knowing that you can track your deck and get the lackeys to have those turns when you need them.
Yeah, I gotta tell you, that's a really strong way to build your deck.
Yeah.
Like, it's tough to understate, or it's tough to overstate how good it is to build your deck that way. Like, if I smell a terminal collision coming on, I'm just gonna get lackeys, and I'm fine. Like, it's so good.
Yeah. Yeah, so what'd you end up giving it again?
7.
7? Alright. Sounds good. The next card we have is Mountain Village.
Yep.
So, Mountain Village is a 4-cost action that says +2 actions. Sure enough, it says village on it. You look through your discard pile and put a card from it into your hand. If you can't do that, because there are no cards in your discard pile, presumably, +1 card. So, if you don't have a discard pile, this is just a regular village. You draw a card with it. If you do have a discard pile, you get to look through it and put a card from it into your hand. Okay. I want to say that I gave this a 6. I think this is an above average village. It has some really fantastic best case scenarios, but...
It has some pretty bad downside.
Well, I don't even want to say that. I think this card, so far from what I've heard, is super overrated. Like,
Overrated?
yeah, I do. I think people are talking about this card like it's the second coming. Like, they think it's got the scheme effect where it lets you play your other buy twice as often. It doesn't really.
No,
do that.
it doesn't do that.
That's it. That's the
not
best
what it
case.
does.
If your plan is to get lucky, you need a better plan. The thing is that this could have some anti-cycling effect too, because if you haven't drawn that other card that you want to be playing yet, and you have a discard pile, then you don't get to draw a card and replace the Mountain Village.
The canonical example is I'm at the top of a shuffle and someone just played a cursing attack on me, and the only thing in my discard is a curse.
Yeah.
And guess what I'm drawing with my Mountain Village?
Yeah, I mean, like, don't get me wrong. Like, that effect where you get to fish through your discard pile to look through something, it's not unfeasible. In fact, it's not that hard to set up. This is an above average. Remember, I rate Village a 5, and this costs 1 more, and I'm rating it a 6. So I do think that effect is material, and I think that it's something that you can play around and get value out of. But this is a village, okay? That's what it does. That's the main purpose of the card. It's a village. It's got this slight upside, but mostly it's the same card as Village, or Walled Village, or whatever.
Yeah, I gave it an 8 out of 10, and basically what he said.
Yep. Okay, so next up, we have Old Lady.
Old Witch.
Yes, Old
Yes.
Witch.
So this is a $5 action attack. Gives you +3 cards. It says each other player gains a curse and may trash a curse from their hand. I think by far the most important part about this card, and arguably the most important thing about this set, is that this is kind of like how when we were doing Nocturne, the most important thing is I realized I was spelling the word cemetery incorrectly my entire life.
Yeah.
This is that kind of thing. So the fact that this card is what it is means that the card Witch, now we're just going to call it Medium Witch.
Yeah, so we have Old Witch and we have Young Witch, and now from base set we have Medium Witch.
Yep, that's what it's called now.
Yeah.
So I'm going to get a Sharpie and I'm going to fix my witches. And
Yeah,
now they're going to
definitely.
be Medium Witch.
Yeah, so this card is interesting, right?
7 out of 10.
I gave it a 7 as well, but if you recall, that doesn't mean the same thing. So I think that this is well above average, because Smithy is OP.
Oh man,
Like-
I would pay 5 for a Smithy all day.
I mean, you really do that a lot of the time. +3 cards, that's not a
You
benefit.
said doo-doo.
Yeah, that's not a benefit that you want to trivialize. It's really good. And this has a junking effect that slows your opponent down. The fact that the attack isn't quite as great as, say, Medium Witch, it doesn't necessarily make the card worse. It just makes it different. Medium Witch is to give your opponent's deck this permanent defect, whereas Old Witch is to speed you up while slowing them down. I think RTT, when he was talking about it, he talked about the curse that it's giving them as the minus card token, basically, except that they might have to keep it a couple of times. And I really like the way he put that, because actually when you think about it, it has a lot of similarities.
I think that's understating the attack. I mean, having curses, even if they're temporary, is still really, really terrible, especially early on. Like you're pretty lucky if you're able to trash the curse the first time you draw it.
Yeah.
For reference, I give Medium Witch a 9 out of 10, and I give this a 7 out of 10. So when you say you don't think it's a worse card, I think it's a worse card.
I don't
I
think
think Witch is considerably better than this card.
I think they're different. I think that on boards that have trashing, that this is going to end up like being a better card, because it does more to speed you up. This is a better card for you than the Witch is, but it's a better card for your opponent as well than the Witch. So they do different things. in my
With
opinion.
Medium Witch, like, they still have to go through the effort of trashing the curse themselves, and a lot of times
Yeah.
with Old Witch, like, they just kind of wait and then it happens.
Yeah, a lot of the time, but relying on that isn't a good idea. So a lot of the time they have to do
That's
that
a
anyway.
fine idea.
I don't know. I really think that this is about as strong as Medium Witch.
I think it's considerably worse.
But, so...
There you go.
we both gave it a 7, and we mean very different things by that. So, next up we have Patron. Patron.
Oh, you want me to read it? Okay.
Patron.
Patron.
Yes.
Is a 4-cost action reaction. Gives you +1 villager, +$2. And then it says, when something causes you to reveal this using the word reveal, +1 coffers.
I gave this a 4. I think that this is a little bit below the curve. It's at least as good as a silver, right? And it should be, because it costs more. And it potentially gives you a village effect later in the turn. Like, so you get to trade your action now. You get to bank your action, basically. It lets you trade your action right now to have a villager token. The Coffer's reaction is cute, but it's not worth, like, building your deck differently than you would already just to make it work. Coffers are good. They're not that great, though. And I think that you're going to take this over silver if you choose either one, but it's not exactly apples and pizza. So
Okay, well, I like most apples, and I like cheese pizza. Parker is pooping some more. I'm a lot warmer on Patron than Jake is. So, first of all, if it did not have the reveal-y bits, this would be a really, really good card. and the fact that it's a $4 for the most part better than silver card, that's really good, and patrons are going to run out in a lot of games because silver is good and you want this instead. It gives you a villager. It's a village. Villagers are really, really good, and banking your action for whenever you want is really, really, really good. And if that's all the card did, then I'd give it a 7. I'm still giving it a 7.
So
The reveal thing is inconsequential.
I think that this is only really I only really consider this a village when you're not drawing your deck. Like, by the time you're drawing your deck, you're action neutral playing this. So at that point, I stopped considering it a village.
Sure. I mean, it's a village with restrictions, right? Most villages have some restriction. On the other hand, villager tokens are much better than
when you're not drawing your deck.
If I have one villager token at the start of my turn and I'm drawing my deck because of a patron I played earlier on, my deck is much, much stronger.
Yeah.
So I think it's non-trivial even in that case. I think the bottom part, the reveal-y bits,
it's cute.
I don't even think it's cute. Like, I think you're gonna see this, you're gonna look at the board, you're gonna think of 3 cards that make sense to work with patron, and none of them work, and it's a huge disappointment. And
yeah,
I never liked this reaction. I never thought it was good for the game. Obviously, Parker's upset by it too.
Yep.
That's all I have to say.
You can't
about
blame him.
patron.
Yeah, he
7
wants
out
it
of
to
10.
work with more cards.
Yeah.
Okay. So next up we have Priest. Priest is another 4-cost action, and it gives you plus $2. And then for the rest of this turn, when you trash a card, plus $2. So it doesn't apply to its own trash. You just get the $2, not 4. But then if you trash any more cards throughout the turn, you get plus $2. And I rated this a 7 out of 10. I think this is well above average, and I think that 80% of that is because it gives you plus 2 coins and lets you trash a card. I think that that's enough. And then it has this other effect that's nice too sometimes.
Yeah, like that other effect matters very, very little of the time. I gave this card a 9 out of 10. Priest is insane. Plus $2, trash a card from your hand is insane. Let me give you an idea how good this card is, how strong this card is to open with, okay? Jack of all trades. One of the best cards you can possibly open with.
Yeah.
You need a very compelling reason not to open with a Jack of all trades. And until now, in all of Dominion, there was only one that cost 4, and it was Remake, and not even all the time. Priest, that's another compelling reason not to open with Jack of all trades. You can trash an estate, and you can hit 5. I know. The anticipation is killing all of us, Parker. But I just think being able to do both of those things is absolutely insane. It's insanely powerful. Like, there's really only one card in Dominion right now that does those things, that can, like, help you hit 5 and trash an estate. It's Masquerade. And this is better at doing that than Masquerade. Just by virtue of being $2 and trash a card from your hand.
I'm not going to say that it's the only card that does that. Like, Salvager helps you hit 5 and trash an estate too. But the...
Okay, fine.
Well, but not to belittle your point, I gave this a 7, which is basically Adam's 9 if you factor in conversion rates across nations. So yeah, I think Priest is super solid, not because of this extra little weirdness that it can do, which, by the way, we'll get to in a second. It's also really good. It's because it's plus 2 coins and trash a card. That's really powerful. Now, this other effect... Sometimes it takes on another significance, and games get really weird when you get to use Priest as econ, like significant econ. And that's not impossible. There are lots of games where you can do that. I remember a lot of weird preview week games. I had, I think 4 Priests out, and I did the math, and I netted more money by buying Ritual to trash a gold than I would have by playing the gold. And I had this other game where I had Priests out, and the best econ for the deck was to play Raises and then trash them. It's a weird game when you get to use Priest's second ability. And it can be really powerful in terms of econ. Like, if this card can get you 4 coins for a terminal action, that's not amazing by itself, but the fact that it only costs 4 is pretty good for that.
Sure, I just think that's pretty narrow. I think the bread and butter of why you originally had this card in your deck in the first place is the fact that it's amazing
Yeah.
at opening with.
Yes, I mean that's true. Yeah.
Like, this is most of the time better than opening with a Jack of all trades. That's insane.
Yeah.
9
no.
out of 10.
I am with you on that.
Yeah.
7 out of 10. So the next card that we have is another very, very powerful card, I think. And I think that this is a candidate for most powerful card in the set. I am going to say that there's something else coming up that's more powerful, but this is what I considered the most powerful card in the set for a while, and I still think it's way up there. And it's Recruiter.
Sure, so Recruiter is a 5-cost action. Gives you +2 cards. It says trash a card from your hand, +1 villager per dollar that it costs.
So I hope that you heard the part where you draw 2 cards and then trash a card from your hand.
It sounds like Masquerade, man.
And Masquerade's like a 9.
It is. I gave Masquerade a 9.
I also give Masquerade a 9,
Yeah.
which means I think it's way better than Adam does. No, yeah. I think, like, if Masquerade teaches us anything, it's the trashing is a really good one, but the other thing is that drawing cards and then trashing is way better than just trashing, because you get to look at more cards and trash the one that you want to trash. That's super powerful. Obviously, you can't open with this as liberally as you can Masquerade, but this will be a card that you hit 5 in order to get, and are very happy about that.
So, I think this is one of the more overrated cards of the set.
Do you really?
Yeah.
Hot take.
That is not a hot take. I think it's a great card.
Super hot take.
8 out of 10. I think it's overrated. I do not think this is a 10. I don't think this is a 9. Now, what does that mean? Absolutely nothing, obviously. I just think that people think this is a lot better than what it really is. It is fantastic to draw 2 cards, trash an estate, get 2 villagers. Villagers are amazing. You're happy to trash most things in your deck just to, get villagers from your recruiter. All of that is really, really good.
Playing Recruiter to trash an estate, that's better than playing a Lost City.
I'm aware that it's better than playing a Lost City.
It's better than playing a Lost City.
Lost City is a fantastic card.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's great.
9 out of 10.
Okay, 9 out of 10, 8 out of 10. We're really not that far off. I think that, the thing is that this is not draw, right? Because it's a required trash. Like, I know Mercenary says +2 cards on it. It's not draw because you have to trash cards, right? It decreases your hand size.
This is not increasing your hand size.
Yeah,
that's true.
it's keeping it the same.
But that's not the point. This is to get control of your deck.
Well,
and it does it
trashes
really well.
cards, and it is a village, and it gives you villagers. And both of these things are fantastic, and I gave the card an 8 out of 10 as a result of that.
Yeah, so I think that I don't think this card is overrated. I think that this card is as good as you've heard, if not better. And I think that this is the thing you buy when you hit 5 first. I think this is your first 5er 9 times out of 10 when you see it. Like, there has to be another really good 5er out there for you to not just take this first.
Or anything 4 or less that can trash the estates earlier.
Man, I think even then,
I don't.
this is so good.
There we go. This is a source of disagreement here. This thing costs 5, and that's
It's not
rough.
just to trash estates.
Also, the comparison to Masquerade is not fair because Masquerade is an optional trash. Now, granted, you have to have something bad to trash, but I can have 1 bad thing to trash and play 5 Masquerades. I have to have 5 things to trash to play 5 Recruiters.
But the thing is that you get this effect of being able to move through your deck as if you had a lab, you get to, because you can do it non-terminally. Right, so you can draw 2 and trash 1. That's helping you play the cards that you want to play early on as well as a lab would have done.
Every time you play Recruiter, you have to spend an action or spend a villager on it. That's the same as Masquerade. Okay, if you're not talking about the Masquerade comparison anymore?
I don't think it's separable from the card, but I think that this is a very, very powerful card. I think you get it whether or not you get to trash the estates early, and I just think that
villagers
there
are
is
great.
pretty much
You might still get
there's pretty much no situation where you can't make ample use of this.
Well, I think that's overstated. and I think the card is in general overrated.
I
However,
think I'm
8 out of
understating
10.
it. I'm underselling Recruiter.
There you go. There you go. There's your disagreement. Let us know what you think in the comments section. By the time you hear us, I'm sure it'll be very clear which one of us is right, high, and which one of us is overstating things.
Yo. So, next up we have research. Research is a 4-cost action that says +1 action, and then trash a card from. Oh, by the way, this is a duration. It's orange.
Whee!
Trash a card from your hand. Per coin it costs, set aside a card from your deck, face down on this, and then at the start of your turn, put those cards into your hand. That's weird, so I'm going to read it again. Plus action. Trash a card from your hand. Per coin it costs, set aside a card from your deck, face down on this, and then at the start of your turn, put all those cards into your hand.
So it's like Apprentice, only you get the cards at the start of your next turn instead of now, and you have to set them aside.
Yeah, it's
and like Recruiter was like Apprentice, only it gave you 2 cards and actions for the cost instead of an action and cards for the cost. Okay, that was a really dumb comparison. Anyway, research. I gave it a 4 out of 10.
I think that this is a pretty decent card. So, like, it's trashing, and that immediately, like, gets it in my good graces. And it's also, it's non-terminal trashing, too. So, the fact that you can use this to seed your hand is great. The fact that you can trash cards, and you can actually put a bunch of these into your deck and not really care about them colliding because, like we said in our trashing episode, there's a really big difference between terminal trashing and non-terminal trashing, and so this is on the better end of that. I'm gonna
on the better end of that.
Yeah, between terminal and non-terminal, this is non-terminal, which is strictly better.
Non-terminal is the better end when you're considering the 2 options, terminal and non-terminal. However, when you compare this to like all other non-terminal trashing, I think this is a lot worse than it.
I don't actually think so because you can you get 2 copies of it and you trash the other one and it sets up a really good turn. So
that's
I don't know.
Fantastic, but like I want to trash cards in the beginning of the game. So I'm gonna open with this card with my $4 buy. It's orange. I'm gonna play it once on turn 3 or turn 4 maximum.
Yeah,
it's gonna miss that shuffle. I'm gonna trash 1 card, and this sucks at trashing coppers.
It does, but it's really good at trashing other things. So, like, you want to open with this.
Marginal at trashing other things.
You want to open with this along with another trasher if you can.
I don't think you want to open with it. It's orange, man. It's got problems.
I mean, So I think that it's fine to open with just because it says the word trash on it. Like, that's not to be discounted.
I mean, I will open with it because it says the word trash on it. But it's orange, and I'm not going to be happy with it. Like, I'm going to look for other things before I look for orange and tan things to do my trashing in the opening. But, hey, it trashed the cards. Hey, I gave it a 4. What do you want from me, man?
I gave it a 6. I gave it above average by my scale. And that's because it's trashing and it's not terminal. That's enough for me.
That's just so slow, man.
It's slow, but, like... And the other thing is that even toward the mid-game, when you're done doing your early game trashing, you can use it to set up a really big spiky turn, which is pretty good.
Hashtag spiky turn.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're drawing your deck, it's not good. If you're not drawing your deck, fan-fiddly-tastic.
Yeah, that sounds about right to me.
Sweet.
So the next card we have is another 5-cost. It is called Scepter.
So Scepter is a 5-cost treasure. It says when you play this, choose one. Plus $2, or replay an action you played this turn that's still in play. Oh, Mr. Parker. I know it looks so great, but yet it's just a silver most of the time. Because most of the things that you would want to play are not nearly as good in your buy face. 6 out of 10.
That's true. I actually give it a 5 out of 10 for that same reason. Yeah, so, I mean, this is an excellent card when you can line it up with your Trasher that you opened with, or your Junking attack that you're playing as often as you can. But, again, we're reminded that a lot of the actions that you're buying don't do a whole lot in the buy phase. And we're also, though, reminded that by cards like Charm and Minion, that having this conditional effect that only does something if you line it up or it's a good situation for it is fine, if you tack it onto an optional silver instead, right? Like, the charm effect, that's amazing when it works, but when it doesn't, you're fine having spent 5 on it because it can be a silver. And I think the same thing can be said about Minion and this, too. I think that this it gets to be... I rated it a 6, but I think that's a little generous. I'm going to give it a 5. I think this is a 5 out of 10.
I rated it a 6, and I'm also thinking about giving it a 5, too, now that we're sitting here. So, like, Scepter is kind of like, well, it's a village, first of all. Scepter is a village. Let that sink in for a little bit. There's a lot of weird stuff that happens, but I think the best analog is, like, Throne Room.
Sure.
Because it's, like, it doesn't take an action, and it kind of duplicates the best thing you have. And if you can't do that, well, hey, silver is a constellation prize. The problem is it doesn't want to double any deck control stuff, because plus cards and plus actions is not good in your buy phase.
Well,
you want money and buys.
With the caveat, it does want to double Trashers. Like, it wants to... It doesn't want to double certain deck control stuff, but it doesn't want to double mid-turn deck control, like what Adam said, the plus cards, etc.
You want to
plus
double
actions.
a Trasher with Scepter.
Yeah, totally.
I don't really think that's all that great, but whatever.
I think it's fine,
I
because
don't think Scepter's all that great.
Well, I also don't think it's all that great. I mean, I think it's a 5, and I could be persuaded to rate it lower. But the thing is that it is getting to replay whatever action is most valuable at the time. So sometimes that's going to be a Trasher, and that's going to be the best case for it, and then it transitions into an extra copy of your payload cards as you progress through the game, and the payload gets better. So for that reason, I think it earns its keep as a 5er. I think it's fine. I'm not... It's not lighting the world on fire for me, but this is giving me enough.
You're describing that. I don't think it's nearly that good. Like,
I mean, I'm not...
When are you going to double
describing...
a Trasher? Like, you've trashed with the Trasher, and now you're going to draw enough cards to draw this and more stuff you want to trash?
You're doing that at first, and then this same card is then transitioning into something that can be payload later.
I think I'd already be playing as payload at that point.
I am describing, like, the best case scenario for it. Like,
Seems far-fetched.
I don't think it's that far-fetched, but I think that it's certainly optimistic.
Optimistic.
Now, and I'm giving this a 5 out of 10. I think it earns its keep, but barely.
Actually, it's pretty good with keep because it's a treasure.
Yeah, there we go.
So there's that. Also, I just want to point out that, like, even though we're kind of poo-pooing on how powerful the card is, this is fun to play with. I think this is one of my favorite cards in the set.
Yeah, it's kind of neat.
In terms of, like, how much I like the card.
That's fine.
Yep.
I think the whole set's good. For the record, I really like this set. I think it's a fun and engaging set to play with. This is actually not my favorite card in the set. I find it kind of boring, but I find it
very good,
I find it boring in the context of a set that's really fun and engaging. So
yeah, I think the set is overall really good. I'm more excited about this than Adventures or Nocturne.
Yeah,
in terms of the ones I play tested.
This for me is on par with Empires, I think.
Empires will always be Bay. But
it's really high praise for me to compare something to Empires. Yeah. Okay, so next we have Scholar. So Scholar is a 5-cost action that is pretty simple. It's straightforward. It tells you what it wants, and it takes what it's gonna... you discard your hand and draw 7 cards.
Sweet.
Discard your hand plus 7 cards.
That's
straightforward. That's what it does.
That's
Moving
it.
on. Okay, we should
draw
talk
to
about
X.
Well, yeah.
It's actually
it's better than draw to X.
It's one of the better draw to X cards because the discard your hand can be an upside in a lot of cases for draw to X decks.
Yes.
With that said, draw to X is bad, and so I gave this a 5 out of 10.
I gave it a 4, which is actually probably pretty much the same rating.
Yep.
Like, it gets pretty good when you are using it to draw your deck when you otherwise wouldn't have.
That's
I know.
hard.
When the thing is, like, that you could say that about any card. So it's pretty restrictive and unpredictable as far as Smithy variants go, and I do consider this pretty much a Smithy variant. Yeah, this is basically...
Sure, it's a terminal draw card.
If you think about this as plus 3 cards, you end up with the same number of cards in your hand. Woo! It's got these draw to X synergies, which are nice with, like, disappearing payload, but like Adam said, that's...
God, with just virtual payload, not disappearing payload.
Whatever the difference is.
Okay.
The idea is that, like Draw to X, it's got a lot of limitations in that it's awkward to control and awkward to pilot. It's as likely a lot of the time to hurt you as harm you. Obviously, you can just not play it. But
I love that you said that, because that's not what you meant to say, but you said it's just as likely to hurt you as it is to harm you, and that's exactly how I feel about that.
yeah. I mean, it's anti-synergistic with other draw, right?
Yeah, Draw to X is that way, which is why it's bad. Well, one of the many reasons why it's bad.
Even though this is... So, like, this, some people have said, is just strictly better than Library. I don't agree with that. I do think it's a better card than Library. I also think that's really not very high praise.
Yep.
So, I gave this a 4 out of 10.
Yep.
This is draw, but it's not great draw. So, 4 out of 10.
Excelente.
Yep.
Moving on.
All right.
Sculptor. So this is a 5-cost action. It says gain a card to your hand costing up to 4. If it's a treasure, plus 1 villager.
This is real good.
Sculptor, I think, is one of the more underrated cards. I think Cobbler was like the most underrated card in all of Dominion. And I think the fact that people are not underrating this as much as Cobbler, and then they're like, oh, well, Cobbler's still bad, is like a pretty clear double standard. Like, this is about as good as Cobbler.
Well,
gain a card and,
this is a lot better than Cobbler in the situation when you're drawing your deck.
I guess.
But it's also takes up terminal space, which Cobbler doesn't do, unless you're, gaining treasures with it.
Right.
Well, yeah, so for the record, I think this is a strong card too.
It's really good. Like, gaining to hand, the thing that you want, is great. And if I don't have any actions after this, I just gain a treasure, and I'm happy. And I get a villager, and villagers are fantastic.
Yeah, so as long as your deck can tolerate having the treasure in it, as long as your deck can accommodate the treasure, this turns out to be a really good card for you.
What do you mean can accommodate the treasure? Silver's a great card, Jake.
Well, yeah.
Any deck would be happy to have a silver, right?
All of them.
Yeah.
You can always add a silver, and your deck will be better 100% of the time.
Thank you.
So so I gave this a 7 out of 10 for the record. I think that this is significantly above average. I think it is very good payload.
I gave it an 8, basically the same rating.
Yeah, and I think that gain to hand is a pretty rare effect in Dominion, and because it's so rare, people tend to forget how good it can be. It tends to be tacked onto really bad cards like Explorer, but it's actually a really good effect because part of the balancing of cards that gain other cards is that you have to draw them, and is that they go into your discard pile and then you have to draw them. It's delayed value, but when you gain to hand, you get around that. So the idea that you can do that potentially non-terminally because you could have banked villagers earlier to gain an action, or you can just gain the treasure, is really powerful. I think that this is one of the better workshop variants.
I think it's really good.
Yeah. So 7 out of 10.
Yeah. Neato.
All right. Next up, we have Seer. Now, this is a card that has no shortage of respect. I don't think anybody's underrating this one yet. And
I don't know if it's possible to underrate the card.
So this is a 5-cost action. +1 card, +1 action. Reveal the top 3 cards of your deck. Put the ones costing from 2 to 4 into your hand. Effectively, you draw those. Put the rest back in any order. Once more, it's +1 card plus action, so it's a cantrip, and then you look at the top 3 cards of your deck. If any of them cost between 2 and 4, you put those into your hand. The rest go back.
So I think the analogy here is to Apothecary, right? It's a cantrip, you draw some stuff, you put the rest back. Woo!
I think this is way better than Apothecary.
I think Apothecary is way better than this card.
No, this is way better than Apothecary because this is
You just hate potion cost cards.
I do, but this is also... The thing about Apothecary is that Apothecary is sifting through a bunch of cards, but it's putting cards into your hand that you don't really want. Coppers.
But you have them.
This is putting cards into your hand that can potentially be really effective. Whereas I agree with your assessment in your article, What is Draw? you call Apothecary draw, but it's draw with issues. Like, it's draw, but it's putting... It doesn't draw non-coppers for you. I think that this is increasing your hand size of useful cards, and that's pretty powerful.
So, like, yeah, the cards you draw with Seer are more useful than the cards you draw with Apothecary, obviously. But you have to buy those cards, and they don't start in your deck. So, like, the fact that you have 7 coppers and, you know, a potion by the time you get the Apothecary, the fact that you already have those in the deck makes Apothecary better. Like, I mean, Seer is draw, right? It draws
it's non-terminal
cards.
draw.
And that's not really what Apothecary is doing for you. It's kind of, it's getting you past the coppers that you have, and Seer is trying to find you other things to put in your hand.
Now, I actually am not going to compare this so much to Apothecary, because
It's
Apothecary...
mechanically similar, but when you put it in a deck, it does a different thing, right?
Right. I look at Apothecary more as a filtering effect.
Yeah.
Whereas Seer is actually draw. I compare Seer more to Lab than I do to Apothecary.
Yes. So, between Seer and Lab, which do you think is a stronger card?
Okay, so the thing
I
is...
think they're close. Right?
Yeah, I think they're really close, and I think that Seer has a higher ceiling. There are more cases where Seer's going to be amazing, but Lab is going to have more consistent value.
For sure.
I think that, in general, I give Seer and Lab both an 8
I think
out
they're
of 10.
close.
And to me, an 8 means this is well above average. This is a very powerful card.
I give Lab an 8. I gave Seer a 7. I
Okay.
think they're close. Obviously, they're different numbers, but you know they are fulfilling a similar role. I think Seer has issues, right? Seer isn't going to increase your hand size if it doesn't have the right things to draw. Lab can draw other copies of Lab. Seer cannot
Sure.
do that.
That's true.
Well, I mean,
Well,
you can draw one of them, but
Now, there's the weird synergies with cost reduction in Seer, where it gets weird.
synergies or maybe anti-synergies.
Yeah, right. So, like, you could accidentally get things below the threshold of Seer, too, and then it's just a cantrip.
Right. Yeah, that's...
Yeah, so I do think that Seer is similar power level to Lab, which puts it well above the curve of Dominion cards in general.
Well,
So
Lab's fantastic.
yeah, no, I think that this is an 8 out of 10. And
I gave it a 7. What do you want from me, man?
I want an 8. Now, I'll tell you what I'm curious about with Seer, though. I mean, so, like, the thing is with Seer, it's really good, but there's almost not a whole lot of reason to talk about it much, because it's very straightforward with what it does and why it's good. I really am curious, though, about Seer and Big Money. I'm curious about this Big Money deck that is just flooding with silver and takes Seer over gold. And I'm wondering about, does a Big Money deck that has access to Seer, when it hits 6 or more, does it just not buy golds, and does it maybe get Seers instead to pick up silvers? I don't know if that's good. I don't know if in practice that's going to work out, but I am curious about it.
Like Lab Big Money with silver? Well, I mean, Seer maybe has a higher upside. I don't think it's very good.
I mean, like, it might not be. Like, if you tell me that that's terrible and that Big Money just beats that, I'm not going to be shocked, but I am going to want to try and play it. I mean, those games are mine to lose.
Yeah, I mean, if you buy Seer on 5 and get gold on 6, then that seems great. But I don't like getting Seer over gold.
Right. So, well, like, you start to wonder, like, how often it's worth, when Seer is your draw, making sure you have as many cards that Seer can grab as possible. I don't know. Yeah, so, like, you maybe, at that point, are reluctant to take a gold for that reason. So, I don't know.
Okay.
It's, like, I'm with you that this is sounding kind of weak when you say it out loud, but I think it's worth thinking about at the very least. Okay, so next up we have a card called Silk Merchant.
Yeah, so this is a 4-cost action. Gives you 2 cards and a buy. Says when you gain or trash this, +1 coffers and +1 villager.
Wow. Okay. So
this looks really innocent.
And it's not.
And it's this is a really good card. I gave this an 8.
Yeah, I think I gave it an 8 as well.
This is really strong, and I think,
as we all know, my 8s are superior to Adam's 8s. So yeah, this is very, very powerful.
So I think, I mean, obviously, if it just said 2 cards and a buy, wouldn't be rating it this high.
That would still be good. I just want to say
it would be fine, but it wouldn't be 8.
Like even for 4,
right?
Yeah.
I mean, I think the fact that it gives you a coffers on gain and a villager on gain. First of all, this is a village, right? Because it gives you villagers, and that's amazing.
Yeah.
But I think you buy this thing, and it gives you coffers, and that's a huge deal because like it's turn 3. Here I am, and I wanted to hit 5, and here I am hitting 4, and next turn I'm not optimistic about my prospects of hitting 5, or maybe I want to hit 6. You just buy this thing and you get a coffers right away, and like nothing in Dominion does that except for the next card we're going to talk about here. But that one costs 5.
Yeah.
And this one costs 4. That's so good.
So, like, the other thing is that any card that has plus cards and plus buy on it, I really want to draw attention to the fact that increased hand size and plus buy, those are the two main ingredients to be able to do better than a province per turn. Those are the two main ingredients you look for when you're building a high payload deck versus playing the money density and trying to get a single province as quickly as possible. So
really good point.
Yeah, so this almost single-handedly enables these multi-province turns. It doesn't do it all by itself, but it gets you a huge step of the way there. And the on-gain and on-trash effect is also fantastic. The fact that you can tactically get a villager. Remember, we said earlier about that's part of why Lackeys is so good, is that you can get those villagers when you know you're about to need them. Same with coffers as well here, but I think the villager really stands out in that respect. So obviously, with trash for benefit, this gets really good as well. But
well, anything that likes it likes to be trashed.
Yeah, right.
And it does cost 4, so sure.
Yeah, and this card is so easy to glance over, but it's actually really strong. And the reason that it's easy to glance over and get bored with is that the benefits are so simple and straightforward, but how good and useful they are pretty much all of the time, and the sheer convenience of when it gives you what it gives you just makes this such a versatile and useful card in like almost every situation.
Like you get into games of Dominion and like you just find yourself buying these a lot more than you ever thought you would.
Oh yeah, totally. I remember actually when this card was first spoiled, people were actually down on it. People were saying like, "Oh, this isn't very good." They were rating it low, and Donald, having had experience with the playtesters and having had people think about it, he just sat back and said, "Nah, give him time." And he was right. Like, people just needed to play with this card to realize how good it is. You're gonna buy this way more than you think.
Yeah.
Unless you're right when you look at it, in which case you're going to buy this as much as you think you are.
Good job. Way to go, man.
Get
Or
yourself a Coke.
Yeah.
Or a Pepsi, whatever's nearby.
I actually finally have more Coke. I'm not out of Coke anymore. Do you want me to get you a Coke?
I'm good, thank you.
Sweet.
Alright, so next up we have Spices. Spices is a 5-cost treasure. It gives you plus $2 and plus 1 buy. And when you gain this, plus 2 coffers.
So it really only costs 3.
Sure. I mean, that's true if you're piling out.
No, it's not, because you can't spend the coffers after buying cards.
When you're piling out. Yeah, it's true when you're piling out and you have Villa. So
there you
go.
We did it, guys.
Man, so like, I just want to say that people seem to be like really down on this card. People seem to be really underrating it, I think, by a lot.
Remember all that stuff we just said about Silk Merchant?
Yeah.
Here too.
Yeah.
Yep.
This card's
GG.
really good. I'm giving this a 7. Like, this is even... So, like, don't get me wrong, I give Silk Merchant an 8, but that card costs 4. This one costs 5. This is still well above average. This is a really good card. It's a 7 out of 10.
I gave it a 5 out of 10. It's fine. It's great. Good times.
The thing is that this card is pretty good before you're drawing your deck. I think you're going to take this over gold, like, most of the time. I think that if you hit 6 even, like...
buy. That's a big deal.
Right. I think even in, like, big money, though, where you don't care about the buy, or even when you don't care about the buy, let me just say that, I think you're going to take this over gold. Because
I think you're going to get, like, 1 or 2 of them over gold, for sure.
And
you'll also get gold.
So before you're drawing your deck, this is a pretty good card. You take it over gold, yeah? But once you're drawing your deck, the amount of control this single stop card affords you over your next 2 turns is just phenomenal. You gain this card into your deck, and it either provides $2, $3, or $4 with benefits all in between, and a buy. So that's insanely rewarding for players who are drawing their deck and are playing very precisely to the point that they're planning out their payloads so that they know what their next 3 or 4 buys are going to look like. They know what their deck looks like this turn, and they know what they want it to look like in 2 turns. Like, this is an insanely rewarding card for that precise kind of play style.
Insanely rewarding. I think that's a little optimistic. But
I'm going to say that this card gets a lot better when you are drawing your deck.
I think that's worst case.
I disagree with that.
I mean, if you don't care about the buy, give me a gold, man.
No, I mean, like, I'm assuming you care about the buy and that you're using it to precisely leverage your payload.
If I care about the buy, then yes, this is much better than gold.
Yeah.
That is a true statement. We did it, guys.
So, I gave it a 7. Adam gives it a 5. So we will see which one of us is right next time on Making Luck. And next we have Swashbuckler.
So this is a 5-cost action. Gives you +3 cards. It says if your discard pile has any cards in it, +1 coffers. Then, if you have at least 4 coffers, take the treasure chest. The treasure chest is a lovely artifact. It says at the start of your buy phase, gain a gold.
So, I think the most important thing about this is clearly the art. It's quite captivating. I think we can all agree that.
What's your favorite thing about the art?
Oh man, it's really hard to say. This card it's really eye-catching. It's distracting even.
Yeah?
Yeah, it's
I was gonna say the most important thing is the fact that it draws you 3 cards.
Right.
I would pay 5 for that effect quite frequently.
And this is, I think, above the curve in terms of Smithy variants, like what you're describing.
Coffers are great, man.
Yeah. Now, I will say that the first time that Adam brought this out in playtesting, I read this and my eyes went wide and I said, "This is broken."
and the art wasn't even on it, for the record.
Right. No, I said, "This is broken." It didn't even have the chest, by the way. I think the chest was added like later. It just had the coffers thing.
Well, it wasn't called Swashbuckler, and there were a lot of other things that this card used to be, and so, yeah.
So, the thing is that +3 cards +1 coffer is amazing, but it's actually a lot harder than you would think to get that coffer.
Yeah.
You're gonna get this a lot more seldom than you think you will.
It's true. I mean, and myself included, most people would overestimate how much you're actually going to get that stinking coffers.
You're not, but the +3 cards is, of course, by far the most important part of it.
I mean, Smithy is OP.
Yeah, now...
Hashtag please nerf 2018. Yeah.
Now, like, the treasure chest, though, is an important part of the card a lot of the time.
It's really good. The treasure chest is really, really good, and anyone who thinks that the treasure chest is something that you don't want ever when Swashbuckler is in the kingdom, no. Treasure chest is really, really good.
Yeah, the funny part is, like, I've heard people talk about needing to spend coffers so you don't get the treasure chest.
That's ridiculous.
It really is, because you've got this +3 card. Like, if Tragic Hero taught us anything... Remember, Tragic Hero was the most underrated card in Nocturne for a while. If Tragic Hero taught us anything, it's that gold is really good when you can draw it. And gold is also really good when you get to gain it for free. Gold is a fantastic card to gain for free. So if you let your opponent keep the chest for too long, I think that that's usually a game-losing mistake. Because the fact that you can just fully invest into your deck control and then Swashbuckler passively takes care of your econ for you is really, really powerful. I played more than one game during preview week where the gist of who got ahead came down to who got the chest first and who got to keep it for more turns. Like, the idea that you're getting to gain a gold every turn passively on top of a card that helps you draw that gold is very powerful.
Yeah, for sure.
I gave this an 8 out of 10.
What did I give this thing? 7 out of 10. Yep.
Yeah. Also, the art is beautiful.
You really like that art. Just a moment. Jake's gotta say goodbye.
Anyway, so next up we have Treasurer.
Oh, hey, you already scrolled. Sorry. I finally got the kid to sleep, by the way. He's asleep.
Nice. I'm going to poke him.
Please. Okay, very good.
All right.
I was a little worried.
Yeah.
So Treasurer is a 5-cost action. Gives you $3, and it says choose one. trash a treasure from your hand, or gain a treasure from the trash to your hand, or take the key. And the key is an artifact, and it just says at the start of your turn you get plus $1.
Yeah, which is interesting. The most interesting part about it, I'm going to say, is that I forgot to put it in the images. So if you will bear with me a moment. There we go. And that's horn. That's a lot
Control
of things.
Z.
Control Z.
Well, our
There
video
it is.
listeners, everything's still highlighted
Yep.
over there, Jake.
All
just
right,
just click on...
Sweet. Yeah.
There,
There we go.
nice.
So that's the key. Now, at the start of your turn, plus $1, and that's the artifact that you can get from Treasurer. Now, hey, look, it's the same lady. So,
Treasurer,
yeah,
9 out of 10.
I gave it a 7, but I think it's really good.
This is a solid 9 out of 10, and I feel like it's really, really easy to underestimate this card, because, like, you're going to look at this and you're going to say, well, this is Moneylender and it costs 5, right? It gives you 3, and you have to trash a copper. And that's what you're going to be using.
Yeah.
That's what you're going to be using it for most of the time.
That's
right?
the best thing that the card does, I'm going to say, is the trash the copper.
Trashing is fantastic.
But it's close, because the thing is that, like, unlike Moneylender, this is useful at every phase of the game. The Moneylender has a point where it just stops being useful, and that's the point where you have your deck under control. Whereas this keeps being useful by giving you payload options with the key and letting you gain treasures.
So I'm gonna say that the one of the probably the strongest ability. I don't know. Trashing copper is great. The next strongest thing that this thing can do is gaining a treasure to hand from the trash. Just gaining a copper from the trash to your hand is really, really good. I
am gonna disagree with that.
It is really, really good.
It's a situational tactic.
It is. It
That
is
when
good
you-
so much more often than anyone is going to give it credit for.
When you absolutely need to hit a price point and you don't care if you make your deck work worse in the process.
So if it could only gain coppers from the trash, it would be really, really strong. Underestimatable. Everyone's going to underestimate this. Really, really strong. 9 out of 10. This can gain any treasure from the trash.
That's when it gets weird for me.
Meaning that if there's any better treasure in the trash than copper, like, you just can't leave that in there because your opponent's just going to get it to hand. Your treasure gains you a silver. First of all, gaining a silver is bonkers. It's $5. That's so many dollars, like $55.
He's talking about the $3 and then the $2 you get from the silver too.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it kind of becomes like Lurker that way, where you've got this necessary counterplay where you have to start getting these because your opponent is playing that game with the trash. Now, I will say that this is probably going to be a little less obligatory than Lurker in that sense. I
disagree. I think this is a stronger card than Lurker all day.
Well, I'm not talking about it being overall a stronger or weaker card than Lurker. I'm just saying in terms of having to play that dance where there are treasures in the trash and you need to worry about letting your opponent get them. I think that more often than not, the actions in the kingdom are higher impact and stronger cards than the treasures in the kingdom.
Really? Silver's a really good card.
It
I don't know
is.
if you know that.
But the thing is that if your opponent, the gaining to hand, that gets you a bunch of money on that turn. That's assuming that getting a bunch of money from stop cards is the best thing that you can be doing. A lot of the time it is, but there are going to be plenty of situations where I think you just don't care.
9 out of 10. Jake is one of the many people who is underestimating just how powerful this card is.
I'm okay with... I reserve the right to be wrong. Let me just say it that way.
You heard it here first, okay? Treasure, 9 out of 10. Way better than everyone's giving it credit for.
7 out of 10. It's pretty good. Anyway. So next up, we get to the only attack in the set other than Old Witch. And that is Villain.
Nice.
A.K.A. Sum of Butcher. So, Villain says, +2 coffers. Yeah. +2 coffers is real. Okay, so Villain says, it's an attack and it costs 5. It says +2 coffers, and each other player with 5 or more cards in hand discards one costing 2 or more, or they reveal they can't. That's the typical get out of it clause in Dominion. So you get 2 coffers, and then every other player has to discard a card that costs 2 or more, unless they don't have any in hand. Which, sad day for them, yeah.
Patron hard counters it, because then... wait a second. If they revealed their hand, then that means they would have had a patron to discard. Rip in peace.
Okay, so villain is... there. I mean, I was joking when I said villain says +2 coffers on it, and then I stopped talking, but I'm kind of not joking about that.
I mean, if you really want them to discard an estate... boom, you got it, bro.
Yeah, so this is really bad against decks that don't trash their estates, like, because they can get to do that.
Or decks that have provinces.
Right, so, like, this is a good mid-game attack. The attack is good in the middle of the game. At the beginning of the game, it probably hits their estate. I mean, if it hits their opening buy, that's amazing, but it's probably hitting their estate. And then by the end of the game, they're probably hitting provinces with it. So in the middle of the game, where they don't have very much other than good cards in their deck, this can be a pretty brutal attack. But the +2 coffers is really what this does. And that's not to be underestimated. +2 coffers is really good. Think about all the times when you buy Butcher and you don't trash a card, but you're still really happy that you played Butcher because +2 coffers is super good. Like, this is like that.
So, Villain has some problems. First of all, playing Butcher was really good because it powered up your future Butchers. Villain doesn't have that upside.
Sure, but the +2 coffers are really good.
Right, the coffers are great. However, I'm gonna buy this if I'm gonna buy this card and get mileage out of the attack, which is, I think, the more than likely the reason you would want to buy this card, then I would want to be playing the attack every turn if I wanted to be effective.
Sure.
In decks that do that, the +2 coffers is much worse because I want to be spending the coffers every turn.
I actually think that this is going to be most often bought for moneyish decks. I think that this is a really good,
much better in a money deck. That's true.
This is going to be a really good solo terminal in money decks, I think.
Right, and so I think you just have to accept the fact that the attack is going to be less effective.
Yeah, now, like, in the times when the attack does hurt, it hurts a lot, though, so I think we're, like, almost to, like, Swindler level variants in terms of, like, the gamut of different things it might do.
Well, it has the range of Swindler,
Yeah.
but, like, most of the time this is just not going to do anything.
Right,
Whereas
I don't think
Swindler,
it's as
like,
powerful
will
an
do
attack
something.
as Swindler, but...
For sure.
It's really variable in terms of what the attack actually does, but that's not why you're buying it. +2 coffers is a really powerful benefit, I'm
So
gonna say.
I'd love to tell you what I gave this card, but I can't see it because I need you to click on the...
Oh, yeah. Yeah, sweet. I broke Adam's display.
What did I give this bad boy?
Yeah. What'd you give it?
5.
I gave it a 6. I think it's above average because I think coffers are really good and above average.
Neato.
Yeah, neat. I think this is mostly payload to get +2 coffers.
Cool.
Moving on. So, we have gone through all of the Kingdom cards in the expansion, and now we get to talk about the projects. And if you are not familiar already, what the projects are landscape cards, so they take up one of the 2 slots that get used up by events or landmarks, etc. You buy these at their price point one time, and then you have the effect of them forever.
And ever.
And ever. And
For the rest of the game.
yeah, for the rest of the game, I am just going to say something before we get started on these.
Yeah.
And that is that I think that in the abstract, these are one of the stronger things in Dominion. You'll notice that I gave all of these pretty high ratings because, in general, I think that it's just... events are a pretty strong effect because you buy them once and then it's this effect that doesn't have to go into your deck, that you don't have to draw, and then this is that, plus the efficiency of just one buy to get something for the rest of the game.
Sure. I think... And for that reason, like, when we rate these from 0 to 10, it kind of means something a little different, right? Because, like, I mean, events, you spend money in a buy on it and it does a thing. And that's sort of like putting a card in your deck, but you're not putting a card in your deck. Okay, you can kind of measure that on the same scale. Landmarks, I mean, you can rate those 0 to 10, but, you know, that's kind of different meaning. It has a different meaning than rating a card, right?
Well, for me, it doesn't. For me, I'm rated all these higher because I'm looking at the expected value I get out of the buy. And for me, that's above average because I'm getting the value for the rest of the game.
So for landmarks, obviously that doesn't apply. For projects, I don't know. I kind of think it's in the middle. Like a lot of the time, it's not a question of do I get this, because some of the projects are like, oh well, of course you want this effect, and of course it's worth it in most games. But you know, what kind of effect is it going to have on you? Is how much is going to change it? So I think there's a lot of subjectiveness when it comes to rating these things from 0 to 10.
Well, sure, that's all of these, but sure, I can see what you mean,
Yeah.
especially projects.
When I say that a project is an 8, and I say that a card is an 8, I don't really think I'm saying entirely the same thing.
Sure.
In any case,
Now, I do want to say one other thing, running theme across all projects that I've noticed is that, and I ended up making this comment for like all of these pretty much. It's good for, and then I just said, I'm just going to say this at the beginning. These are all really good for decks that have otherwise bad consistency. I think like the projects are in general are pretty good at solving the consistency issue and creating value for decks that normally wouldn't cycle very quickly or draw very much. And that comes back to the fact that it's a single buy that affects every subsequent turn without you ever needing to draw it.
I would say that's true of the ones that happen at the start of your turn, because, you know, start of your turn is the most
Yeah.
important time when you're lacking consistency. Not all of the projects will have an effect like that at the start of your turn, but yeah, a lot of them do.
Yeah. So
I'm also maybe not going to have as much to say about a lot of these, because some of them are newish and I haven't played with them as much, and some of them are just kind of, I give the number and that's about everything I have to say. There are
Sure.
exceptions, and we'll get to them.
Yeah, so the first one we have is Academy, which is a $5 project, and once you buy it for the rest of the game, when you gain an action card, +1 villager.
Yeah, villagers are pretty great, but I gave this a 4 out of 10.
I gave it a 6 out of 10. Why'd you give it 4?
I don't know.
Alright, so I give it a 6 because, you know, you can come back to my previous comments on villagers. They let you build your deck out of order, which is pretty strong. The awkward part about this is that you have to hit 5, and then you get the actions to do it. A lot of the 5-cost actions out there are great to gain early, so this competes with that. So you want to get it early to get value out of it, but you're probably gaining it at the cost of something else you want early, so it diminishes its value. Now, once you do have this, though, the fact that it lets you go very village-light and still get the village effects that you need, pretty much, is really powerful because villages tend not to do a whole lot else for you. So the fact that you get to quote-unquote skip those or skip more of them is pretty powerful in terms of being able to get greedy with your payload.
That sounds reasonable. You could be right.
6
I
out
gotta
of
be
10.
honest with you, like, I've maybe played one game with this, maybe.
Oh yeah, no, I've only played with this a couple of times, and they were with Adam. So,
Yeah.
these are hot takes for sure.
Yeah.
So next up, we have Barracks.
Yeah, so this is a $6 project. It says at the start of your turn, +1 action. At the start of your turn is the best time to be getting actions, so I think this is pretty great. I give it an 8 out of 10.
Yeah, I think that this is pretty powerful as well, and I gave it a 7. Now, I want to say that a lot of the points I made earlier about why villagers are good applies to this too. So, in that, it lets you go lighter on villages, which is great for your composition because you can be more greedy with adding payload. There's a caveat there that it's kind of hard to hit 6 in a deck that needs village support and doesn't have it yet. It's really powerful if you can do that.
You know what's really
it's
good
tricky.
for that? Silver.
Nice.
Yeah.
But then the silver doesn't need a village. Well, whatever, it's fine.
Nice.
Nice.
Yeah, but you said it doesn't have the village support yet.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I'm really good at Dominion.
yeah, I gave this a 7. I think
Neato.
that it's really good for low consistency decks, like
Yep.
all of these are. Canal.
Yeah.
Yep. Canal. So this is a 7 cost project. This is hefty. And it says, during your turn, cards cost 1 less, but not less than 0. 1 coin less. This is the only one that I gave. Oh, it might not be the only one. This is the only one. I gave this a dual rating. I gave this.
Oh.
No. I stand by that. I can't give this a single rating. I can't. This is either a 4 or a 7. It's so different. Like, if it were closer, I'd just settle on a number. But if you have plus buy or you have mid-turn synergies, it's great. This is fantastic. It's really high value. It's a 7. But when you don't have any of that, when this basically reads plus $1 for every turn, it's kind of bad. It's too expensive for what it does when it's only giving you $1 every turn.
You know, I'm going to agree with that, but I'm just going to give it a 5 because I'm not a wimp, and I'm going to commit to 1 rating.
Nice.
I think the main synergy you're looking for is gain a card costing up to 4. You get this, it can gain fibers. That's really the thing. I actually don't think this is all that great with plus buy. Like, yes, sure, fine.
I mean,
it works
good value.
and you're getting more value, but like, God, I don't care.
Yeah.
Like the gainy bits is what I care about here.
Yeah, so like it's pretty good when it unlocks a new price point for gainers.
Yeah.
And it's pretty decent with plus buy, but to justify spending 7 on it,
it's a lot of
you
dollars,
need
man.
some synergy. Yeah. Otherwise, it's probably just not worth it.
I don't know. Getting $1 every turn, like. For big money, I'm going to buy that on 7. I'm going to hit 7 all the time in big money, and then I'm not going to ever be sad that I hit 7 again. Like, yes, give me the canal.
I might just take a gold.
You know what? I remember when this project was just give you $1 at the start of your turn, and it was called something else. And like you went on and on and on about how great it was just to get $1 at the start of every turn.
I say
and you
a lot
said
of
you
things.
don't remember this.
No,
And
I don't
just
remember this.
That. You did win that game, and it was probably because you got that it was a project. It was probably because you got the project, and I remember it very well because I was salty that I lost, but you know.
Man, I
We were
usually
Game
remember
Swap.
when I win games at Dominion because
We were Game Swap.
that's a special time for me.
It was called City State. I'll bleep that out if I'm not allowed to say that.
Nice. Okay, so the next one is, I think, the bombshell of the expansion.
Yeah, I don't think anyone's actually sleeping on this one. Like, I think everyone
No,
looks
I
at this
think
and they're
we
like,
all-
yes, this is bonkers.
And they're right.
This is indeed bonkers.
This is the donate of this expansion.
It is one of the 2 10s that I am given.
This is the only 10 that I'm giving out, and it is capitalism.
Look at that guy. He's holding a bill, and hopefully that bill will become a law, I guess. I've never seen this art before. I'm looking at it for the first time.
Wow.
And he's got a messenger bag? Is that necessarily capitalist?
This picture looks kind of modern.
He
actually.
looks like he's mansplaining.
This guy...
Can I say that?
Yeah, no, I mean, this to me, he looks like a hipster. Like, he looks like some guy I'd walk down the
He
street
does
now.
have a hipster hairdo and beard. Yeah.
Except that he's holding a scroll.
It's a bill.
It's a
Jake.
bill. It may
And
become a law.
It might become a law, yeah.
Yeah, so this is a 5-cost project, and if you want to read the text of it.
It says, during your turns, action with plus coin amounts in their text are also treasures. That is nutso. Like, this is a village, first of all.
Yeah, it is a village.
It makes all of these terminal cards that were balanced because they're terminal into things that you can just vomit onto the table, and they do all sorts of insane things. You just shove them all into your deck, you vomit them all into the table, and you're just doing things that are way beyond what you would be doing if you didn't buy capitalism and do this.
Do you remember when you first started playing Dominion? Maybe it was even your another deck builder, but it was your first one, and you looked at Navigator or you looked at Swindler
Chancellor,
or something
man,
like that.
That
yeah.
was mine.
And you were just like, wait a minute, why would I ever buy silver when I can buy this thing that is silver, but it gives me an extra effect? And then you learned about what an action is and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And this takes you back to that point, except now it's true.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Here we are.
This is a 10. This is... Okay, so it's really weird. You read this and you're like, oh my god, this is broken as all get out. And then you're like, wait, maybe it's not, because you think about these things that don't work, and, you know, a lot of actions aren't so great in your buy phase, and then you think about all the things that do work, and it's broken again. Oh my god. This is like Champion having this Champion's infinite action mechanics. Silver is now strictly worse than, like, half the cards in the game. And these cards it gets weird too because there are a bunch of cards that don't have that you wouldn't think would work, but have the iconography technically, so you can play Spice Merchant and trash a card.
Yeah.
It's
pretty decent.
It's bizarre. Things like Poorhouse get
Bizarre
playable.
actually works.
Yeah, Bizarre works.
Yeah.
Things like Poorhouse actually work because you can play
Well,
your
I mean,
treasures and then your Poorhouse
works, but yeah, just the first Poorhouse.
Yeah,
Because all your other Poorhouses are still treasures.
Minion is now even better.
Yeah,
Because
pretty
you can-
decent.
Yeah,
It's got that draw to X synergy. I think the biggest deal about this, and this is something I fought really hard on in playtesting, this actually used to cost more than 5. And then one day it was 5, and everyone was like, yeah, this is fine. We didn't get it this game. And I was like, are you nuts? Like,
yeah.
5 is a steal for this. You're just going to get it all of the time.
I'm glad
this
it
needs to
costs-
cost like 7 or 8.
I want to say, actually, I disagree with that because I think that it's when you have something that's this powerful and this pretty much obligatory that you buy, I think it's better when it's more accessible to the players. The same
I like
reason
how-
the ambassador needs to not cost 5, because if one person can get it and keep the other players from getting it.
I like the fact that King's Court costs 7, and it's crunchy because you have to hit that 7, and then you want to have a bunch of actions that you can king. Like, I like that, and I thought capitalism would benefit from that, but no, you just open with 2 terminal silvers, you're going to hit 5, you're going to get the capitalism, and then now it's a capitalism game. Good for you. Like, there's no pre-capitalism phase, there's no...
Post-capitalism phase.
I guess, yeah.
Yeah.
I was
actually,
going to make an elephant in the room pun. Did I do that
Yeah,
already?
a lot of people are making political jokes about this card.
Yeah.
I don't really get
Okay.
it. Anyway, so this card is broken in ways that I don't really know how to talk about. I'm going to say this. If somebody starts writing a capitalism article tomorrow, or starts to give like
smack 'em in
a
the head.
capitalism tutorial or whatever, yeah, just tell them to shut the up, because they don't know what they're talking about. This
Wait,
card
wait.
just came out.
Wait a second. This is really easy to play with. You look for a terminal action that will be made into a treasure by capitalism. If you find one, you just buy capitalism and you get that thing.
And then you win.
End article.
Yeah, so like...
I did it.
I mean, the it's kind of like how we haven't done a donate episode because there's just we don't even know where to start.
We just did the capitalism episode.
Yeah, right.
Yep.
But like, there's so much to talk about here with this capitalism card. It's really nutso to get your head around, and I just want to say, however crazy you think it is, you're right.
Yep.
Yeah. So next up,
Here it comes.
Cathedral. This is a 3-cost project, and Donald cryptically referred to this during preview week. He said, by the way, this set has a trasher that you can't turn off. That's this 3-cost Cathedral. At the start of your turn, trash a card from your hand.
What do you think of this, Jake?
I gave this a 7 out of 10. I think it is well above average for a buy, and I understand that you think differently.
So, I do a poll where I gather the first impressions of, the cards from the new set, and I took a look-see at the results of that poll after, 10 hours or so.
Sure.
I'm seeing what people think of Cathedral, and, a lot of people are giving it, a 4 or a 3, and then there's a few that are giving it, what Jake's giving it, the 7-ish. And then there are two people as of right now, they get it. They get it. They gave this a 10. Cathedral is a 10 out of 10. It's the other 10 out of 10 in this set. This is absolutely busted, okay? This is better than Chapel. Better than Chapel. Chapel is a 10. This is insane. Cathedral, 10 out of 10. Insane.
Okay. Let's come back to Earth for a minute.
I am... If you
I just want to say...
Insane. You get this turn 1.
Opening with a Cathedral, opening turn 1, it makes your building lightning fast. Yes.
Yeah, and then
thinning
you
is
win
amazing.
the game. GG.
But you are now on a clock
Yeah.
to end the game.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily going to be easy. If you don't have multiple games, this could start to turn into a liability. I understand that your deck doesn't need to last forever. It just needs to win you the game. Yes, I get that. But it does need to have enough longevity to get you through the end of the game. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that like buying this is a mistake because you have to trash cards, and you might have, even if you have to trash something that you wanted in your deck, like this is still probably really good. But I give it a 7, and I think that like other really powerful trashers like, you know, Chapel or Steward that maybe don't give you this restriction that you now need to play to the end of the game really quickly, maybe you get those instead.
Jake, that's not a restriction. You get to end the game faster because you did this thing that's amazing.
But if there's another card that could speed you up, another really good trasher that could speed you up similarly without having to put you on this clock, then maybe you do that instead.
There's one of those in the game, and it's donate. That's it.
I think that Chapel is there too. I do.
This is better than Chapel. Like, you just compare it. Chapel is a card that you have to put in your deck. You have to draw that card with things you want to trash, okay? And let's say you get lucky and you don't get it on turn 5. You are still better off getting a Cathedral turn 1 because you have trashed more cards and you get to buy something on the turn that you would have otherwise drawn the Chapel and sacrificed your entire turn. You gave up a turn to buy the thing, and then you're giving up probably 2 turns of just buying something else to play the Chapel and trash your hand. With Cathedral, you get it turn 1, and now you're buying these really good cards. You're hitting 5 on turn 3 and turn 4 because you trash an estate on turn 2. You are almost guaranteed to hit 5. It's a very narrow case where you don't hit 5. You have to get 5 coppers and then silver, copper, estate. And assuming you open with a silver equivalent.
So silver Cathedral gets you to 5 really quickly, yeah.
It is way better than Chapel. And the fact that there's this drawback at the end where maybe someday you're going to have to trash a card that you don't want to trash, that does not matter, because if you do this and your opponent hasn't, you have won the game by that point.
Oh, the idea would be that you're far enough ahead. No, like, the question would be, is that true? Are you far enough ahead?
Yes. Absolutely. 10 out of 10, Cathedral. Everyone is sleeping on this card except those 2 geniuses who have already answered 10 in the poll.
Didn't one of the people who voted at 10 vote, like, 5 other cards in the set of 10?
Yeah, but they got this one right.
Okay, so... okay. Look, I'm not gonna pretend that you're not making me doubt myself here. Like,
remember all the Cathedral games we played over and over again? Because I opened Cathedral and won, and you were like, no, this is garbage! And I kept on winning.
Adam has a lot of memories that I just don't have. Like, there are all these games that Adam talks about, and he claims I was there for, but... yeah, so, I mean, this is a very powerful card. I gave it a 7. Maybe I'm underrating it. I could be.
He is. He didn't say 10. He's underrating it.
Oh, man.
Better than Chapel.
So, let's get to the one that Adam's underrating.
Okay. Let's hear this one.
Citadel. This one is an 8-cost project. And it says that the first time you play an action card during each of your turns, play it again afterwards.
Yeah, I give this bad boy a 5 out of 10. Not bad.
9 out of 10. 9. Close to 10. I think that this is just nuts. I think it's comparable to gaining a prince that you never have to shuffle into the deck or find a target to line up with and play. I think that you get this, and it's almost always worth building to spike 8 just so you can get your Citadel, because this is just such a powerful effect. The potency that it adds to your deck is unreal.
So, I think it's better than Prince. No argument there, although apples, oranges, etc.
Yeah, I mean, Prince is pretty weak as well, but this is like
right.
This is less awkward.
It's like a Prince of Throne Room, right? It's kind of like the Prince to Throne Room because the first thing you play gets thrown, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of the analogy, and it's not far from that. The thing is that Princing a Throne Room, I mean, Throne Room isn't really the best Prince target. If I was going to choose a Prince target, I would choose something that gives me plus cards, or maybe plus actions. Now, Throne Room kind of gives you plus actions, but it doesn't really give you plus cards.
Yeah, but the thing is, like, it's like Princing a Throne Room, and that's not always amazing, but, like, you get to just play the thing that you would have wanted to Prince instead. Like, I understand that you don't have the increased hand size at start of turn, because you didn't get to, like, you didn't... If you have your Citadel, you don't get to play your steward to draw 2 cards and then find your village or whatever. But man, the idea that you can just hit 8 and then effectively have this prince already active from your deck, this is fantastic. This is a 9 out of 10. This is one of the most powerful cards in the set.
Like, I agreed with everything you said until you said that makes it a 9 out of 10. I just don't think it compares to a lot of other effects you get, especially because it costs so much.
I don't think I think that the games where you skip this are very few and far between.
Oh, I think you skip it a lot just because it costs so much. Well, there you go.
Yep.
Disagreement. Jake believes this is very good. It's good. I gave it a 5. I would actually consider giving it a 6. Like if you
flip that 6 upside down.
See, there you go. So we're really not that far apart in our
Yeah,
estimation of
as
this
you-
card.
Yeah. So the next one we have, and actually I think this answers a little mystery for us because we counted the number of slides and there were one too many, and so.
Are we going to talk about Cathedral again?
Yeah. So
This
next
is
one is
busted.
Cathedral
10 out of
again.
10.
Yeah.
Better than Chapel. All right, next.
So anyway. No,
Say
yeah,
again.
I accidentally put Cathedral in the slideshow twice. So
It was worth it.
City Gate.
Project is busted.
City Gate.
Yeah, it's a 3-cost project. Says at the start of your turn, plus 1 card, and then put a card from your hand onto your deck.
This is really powerful.
I gave it a 3.
Adam is very wrong about this. Adam is 100% extremely wrong. Objectively wrong. He's
What did you
incorrect.
give it?
I gave it a 7. This is
All right, this is a big difference.
2 standard deviations above what I expect an average investment to be.
Like, that just
This is
doesn't
very
matter
powerful.
so much of the time. Like, sure, I'm probably going to get it, but, like, it doesn't
No,
really do anything.
Oh yes, it does.
Well, okay, it gives you plus 1 card.
No, it
And then-
increases your stop card capacity by 1. See
What?
Marcuson's
No.
article. Yes, it
No,
does.
it definitely does not
Yes,
do
it does.
that.
It does do that.
It definitely doesn't do that.
See Marcuson's article on stop card capacity for
The-
more details.
The
But
whole point was to give you a 100% chance to draw your deck. This does nothing for that.
no, it definitely does. It helps you line the 2 cards up that actually kick your turn off.
That's
As long as
not
you have
what
the
that
draw in
article
your
was
deck.
about.
Yes, it was. It was basically about Anyway,
No, it wasn't what that article was about.
I am going to disagree with that, but this increases your stop card capacity by
link
1
the
for
article
the
in the
rest of the
description.
game for the cost of 3. This is not something you skip.
That's-
You don't dud when you have this.
Okay, you said that it increases your stop card capacity. I
Yep.
think that's just false.
It's not.
That's not what this does. That's not what this does. Jake may say that's what it does. That's not what
Correctly
this
even.
does.
Yeah.
I don't want to put inaccurate information out there on the podcast. That's not what this is doing.
I
This is a minor effect that can be great, and yeah, it costs only 3, but I give it a 3 out of 10.
I think that it increases your stop card capacity by 1, and as well, it lets you smooth out your buys or spike by distributing your money.
For
This is
big
just-
money, it's pretty decent.
I think that this is really good for a lot of different kinds of deck, and I don't think that this is something you're going to skip very often. It mitigates duds. It helps you have extra copies of stop cards in your deck without failing to find your control cards. 7 out of 10.
It doesn't help you do that.
It does because
It doesn't help you do that.
No, the whole problem with having a bunch of stop cards in your deck, if you have the ability to draw them, is that you might draw a handful of stop cards, and then you don't get to draw
So
them.
it gives you one more chance to find something for the start of your turn.
Yes.
That's different than what you said. You said that it lets you put more of those copies in your deck
Without
and draw
having-
them all.
without
it does not help you
without
draw them
having
all.
the risk of not drawing them all. Yes, it does help you do that.
No, it doesn't decrease the risk of not drawing them all. It
It
helps you kick off. It doesn't increase how many cards you can draw.
Well, whatever the semantics of that are, it helps you kick off, and that's the $1 million phrase.
It's the $3 phrase. Get it? Because it's a $3 project.
Yeah, no, 7 out of 10.
3 out of 10.
Great,
I think Parker agrees with me.
Parker, you traitorous bastard. All right,
Hey,
so
my wife and I have been married for 3 years.
that's true. I forgot that bastard actually has a meaning. Anyway, so the next one is crop rotation.
Yeah.
This is
Yeah, go ahead.
This is a $6 project that says, at the start of your turn, you may discard a victory card for +2 cards.
Yeah. 4 out of 10.
I actually am giving this an 8. So, the thing is, I'm giving it an 8 because it is something that you... I mean, like, I can't picture not buying this very much of the time. Like,
you trash your estates. It's way better.
No, I mean, this isn't something you buy early. This is something you buy later when you've started greening and your deck is starting to quote-unquote choke on the green. This lets you start... The thing is that this lets you start greening earlier. You can start greening before your money density is to the point where you would normally be comfortable with it.
You have to spend 6 on it. You could just buy a gold or something that draws cards.
Yeah, I think that this is still pretty decent for that. It also helps the decks that are not caring about money density but kick off in other ways. It helps them, when they would normally start to choke on green cards, it helps them continue to kick off even while they're greening.
If
like
they have
those menagerie decks that hate to get their second province, they don't mind it so much anymore.
If they have time to spend $6 on this thing, I mean, they can do whatever they want and win the game. I'm
going to disagree with that.
All right, I think, well, this isn't... I've said what I think. Jake disagrees.
So maybe...
Parker's upset again. I'm sorry, Parker. Jake's just so wrong, isn't he?
It could be... I mean, so, like, I could be talked down from 8.
How about 4?
No.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to be maybe a 7. Yeah.
Well, he's a little more okay with that, but you know. So exploration.
Yeah, exploration is the next one to talk about. It's a $4 project.
Yeah, it says at the end of your buy phase, if you didn't buy any cards, +1 coffers and +1 villager. So I gave this a 5. What'd you give it?
I gave it a 4.
So
I think this is
same thing, really.
Below average, yeah.
We're roughly the same thing. I actually was looking at the ratings, and they were much, much lower.
I think that if either us or the ratings are right, I think I'm going to go with the ratings. Because...
I think we're right. This is not baths. You can
no,
can
it's
game
not
cards.
cards. Yeah.
You just have to not buy things. This has all the same synergies as Mission.
So
I mean, it's not the same upside. You don't get a whole extra freaking turn, but like you get a coffers and a villager, and if your payload is anything other than buying cards, then like this is great. Like you can get an event, or you can like play your Horns of Plenty or whatever, or trash all your cards. Like
yeah, I mean, if you know you're going to be doing that a lot, like maybe trade is out and you have decided your main strategy for thinning is going to be with trade or whatever, then maybe you get an exploration and you're better off for it. And or maybe, you know, you've got some you've been tracking your deck and you're to the point where you know you're about to have a dud turn where you're going to draw 2 coppers and 3 estates or whatever, so you buy an exploration and you get some value out of that turn.
or 2 terminals is what I was thinking, but sure.
Yeah, or something of that nature. Or maybe you open with it with your chapel, and that's great too.
Woo!
So, other than that, though, I don't know. This one is just not doing it for me the way the other projects do. I think it's fine, but
Yeah.
I would rather make my deck better by putting a card in it that's good for it.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So
I'm giving
5/4 out of 10.
Yeah, this is below average. This is bad. Never buy this.
Wow. Okay.
So, fair. It's fair.
yeah, it's pretty fair.
Yeah, so this is a $4 project, and at the start of your turn, plus buy.
Yeah. I gave it a 5 out of 10. I'd say it's pretty fair.
I am giving this a 6 out of 10. I think this is above average.
Wait, but that would mean it's not fair.
It's yeah, it's above average. So I think this project has a few implications. Is the thing like you think about like a big money deck, and you think about how money density decks, just in general, tend to be limited to 1 buy per turn. They tend to be limited to single province turns. Why is that? It's because when you put the means to do good stuff in your deck that's beyond a province, you need to really be drawing it consistently to make that pay off. Whereas a money density deck is thickening itself to the point that it doesn't see much of itself very much. So if you put plus buy in a money density deck, even if you have enough money to hit double province, you're not going to line that up with the plus buy. So the idea, anyway, that you can get plus by every turn of the game that doesn't have to go into your deck and that you don't have to draw. I think that has huge implications. Again, for decks that have poor consistency, it gives them a higher ceiling for their turns than they would otherwise have.
Really? I think that's overstating it.
I think it's pretty good. I think it's above average. 6
I
out
think
of
it's
10.
fair.
Nice.
Come on, the pun was right there, and it's actually fair. I'm going to milk that for all it is worth.
I know, he really is.
I am. We all have to do what we're best at.
Well, next up, we've got the only VP card in the set.
VP card in air quotes.
Yeah, I was a little disappointed that this didn't have any green cards in it, and then Adam pointed out, well, best we've got is this. This is pretty cool, don't get me wrong.
It is pretty cool.
But this is basically taking the place of a VP option in the set.
Yeah, so it's a 5-cost project. It says after the game ends, there's an extra round of turns for players with this. And you don't have to do this, but I would recommend getting points with your extra turn.
Yeah, that's probably what you do.
So here on Making Luck, a Dominion podcast, we are giving you the hard-hitting advice. As play testers, I mean, we've been through this many games.
Yeah.
And we've tried a lot of things. And
we've tried attacking the opponent.
Yeah.
Cursing attacks actually do something. Which is
yeah.
the same as getting points if you think about it.
I've tried just buying more villages.
Yeah, so I tried donating. It still doesn't work.
It's no bueno.
Yeah. So yeah.
Buying points with your extra turn. You should probably do that.
Yeah, so in all seriousness, Fleet, I gave an 8. I gave this an 8 out of 10, and it's close to a 9 for me. I think you don't not buy this. That's my take.
I gave it a 6, and I think there are many times where you don't buy this.
So I think that there are going to be times when you don't buy it, but I think they're pretty restricted to single games that are going to end on provinces. And I think that even then you consider it. Like, this is, at the very least, this is a duchy that doesn't go into your deck until the end of the game. Yeah. Provided your deck hits 5 consistently by the time you're greening, which if it doesn't, I'm sorry to hear that. But this is the amount of endgame positioning that this affects is really, really weird to get your head around. You are looking at ending the game, so if your opponent buys this and then you don't, you have to then win by more than a turn's worth of points, as opposed to just being able to end the game with more points. That is a completely different situation. So your best bet is really just to follow up and buy it yourself. I think that this is just something you need to buy, especially if your opponent buys it.
I think that only becomes relevant, though, if piles are super low. Right?
Yeah.
Because otherwise you would just delay buying this. And then if you're going to delay buying this for long enough, then you're going to start getting points, and then you're getting points instead of getting the fleet. So that already we've confined ourselves to this somewhat narrow situation of piles are low. Right? That's when this is good. It's good when piles are low. I think you'll agree with that. Right? If provinces are going to run, this gets a lot worse.
So I'm not going to say it gets a lot worse. If provinces are going to run and I buy this, the idea is also that you can't afford to win by just the province. You have to, like, if I can hit... Or, like, you can't afford to, like, win by province duchy and then win by the duchy points, is what I'm saying. Like, you have to be able to win by more than a turn's worth of points if I buy this and you don't.
Okay, I'm not sure what that means. I think what you're trying to say, or maybe what I'm hearing, if we're buying provinces, I'm not going to buy fleet over province. Okay? If we're buying province, then the piles were low. Otherwise, I should just be getting points. So, if maybe we've gotten some provinces and it's duchy time, then sure, I can see getting this over your first duchy. Because maybe the duchies won't run out. That also seems fine. So there's these two situations where piles are low, and you get it over your first duchy. I could say those are the situations for fleet. It looks a lot sexier than that, but I think in reality that's when it's going to be, and I gave it a 6 as a result of all that.
Well, I still give it an 8. I think that the end game position it puts you in, if you are the only one who buys it, is very concrete and significant. And I think that your best bet, if your opponent buys it, is going to be most of the time to buy it yourself.
Oh, so like if you want a good end game position, sometimes when I want a good end game position, I spend $5 in a buying a card that helps my deck get better. And then I get a good end game position.
Well, right. So, but this is the thing that gets you points without making your deck worse. So that's just like making it better. Same thing. Exactly the same thing.
If I don't need the points yet, I can just make my deck better and then maybe get this if I really want to.
Exactly the same thing.
Or I could just win the game by getting a bunch of provinces.
Yeah, no, I mean, like, I see what you're saying. Like, so if you lose out on the tempo of getting that costs you a province, then getting the fleet was a mistake. But I think that more often you're going to see the point where the fleet is obligatory.
Okay, so that's the big difference. He thinks that happens more often. I think that happens less often.
All right, well, we will see.
And I guess there's another note. In games with more than 2 players, fleet gets really, really bad.
It's like,
Jake doesn't like this.
What if we were playing basketball, but you got to kick your opponent? It's like, well, okay, I guess then it would be
like
worse to do
division,
that. Yeah.
It's exactly the same thing. In other news, in less than a week, I'll be going up to Michigan to play in a 3-player Dominion tournament.
Nice.
I'll try kicking them.
Yeah, right?
See how that goes.
All right, so next off, we have Guildhall.
Yeah.
Good old Guildhall.
Yep. Gilda-Rooney.
Yep.
Yep.
This is a $5 project that says, when you gain a treasure, +1 coffers. And I gave this another dual rating. I gave this either
a cop-out rating. Yeah,
either
nice.
a 5 or an 8.
I'll give this either a 0 or a 1 or a 2 or a 3.
No, it's either 5 or 8, depending on some situations I'm going to go over. But what did you end up giving it?
What did I end up giving it? I just put in an eye drop, so I can't see that far. I gave it
Good
a
call.
4.
All right.
It's good for big money. 4 out of 10. That's
So-
all I have to say.
The thing is, like, it's really good for big money.
Yeah.
Like, I think that you take this over your first gold in big money. Like, the amount of money density that having coffers affects for you is really powerful. Obviously, if you have a treasure gainer, it gets even better. For other decks, though, for decks that aren't shoving a bunch of treasures in, it really depends. A lot of the time, the only reason non-money decks get treasure at all is so that they can hit 5 and get a 5er, and then they use that 5er to hit 5 subsequent times. So they have to hit 5 to get this and then get treasures. That implies that they're playing a deck that has a really high treasure tolerance that can accommodate a lot of those stop cards.
Like silver.
Yeah. So that's a lot worse for those decks, and I gave it a 5, but maybe that's being generous, and Adam's 4 is a little more accurate. Either way, this is fantastic for money, and maybe not so great for those other decks. I think we agree on that.
Yeah, it's just a shame you couldn't actually commit to a rating, which was the task.
Yeah.
It's really unfortunate that, like, the listeners of this podcast wanted to hear, like, one thing from you, and you're like, no, I'm not going to give you the one thing you want. I'm going to give you 2 things. Ah!
That's what I sound like.
It's like when you go on a
So
cooking
innovation
competition,
is
and it's
a
like,
6...
we want you to make a sandwich, and you're like, I'm going to make you a taco and a burrito.
So innovation. Adam, would you like to read us the text of innovation? It's the next project.
I'd really like to whine more about how you didn't give
All right,
one
so I'll go
rating.
ahead and read it. It is a 6-cost project that says the first time you gain an action card in each of your turns, you may set it aside. If you do, play it.
Sweet.
If you do, play it.
Nice. How many ratings did you give this one, Jake?
Okay, no more dual ratings. That was the last one. The rest.
Remember when you showed me that document and I was like, I'm going to give you crap. Well, I tried to convince you to pick one and you wouldn't. So I was like, I'm going to give you crap for this on the podcast.
I have legitimate reasons for
yeah,
not...
and now they can make their own judgment. And
Yeah.
that's fine, but I'm still going to give you crap for it.
Innovation, Adam. What do you think about this?
6 out of 10. I think this looks a lot sexier than it is, and there are some cool synergies, but I don't know, they just like maybe don't happen as much. So 6. Huh?
I mean, like, I gave it a 7 because there are going to be a lot of times when this does jack like this does absolutely nothing. And you're not and you're just not going to buy it. That's why I didn't feel the need to give this 2 ratings. You're just not going to buy it at the times when it doesn't do anything. But the times when it does do something are so good that it gets a 7 anyway. It's well above average. When there's something like a workshop or there is an action that's really good to play on the turn that you gain it or what have you, I think that this is good enough that it gets an above average rating.
Leave a comment in the comments section. I don't understand how that justifies giving 2 ratings. Like something was different about those other cards. Let me know in the comments section.
No, those other ones, they had like 2 different situations.
Are you required to buy it in those games?
No, I mean they had 2 different situations where you might buy them, and they had different levels of value during those. Like, you might buy Guildhall.
I should have given Fleet 2 ratings. I should have done that.
Anyway, so Innovation, I think it's a solid 7 because there are going to be a lot of times when it doesn't do anything and you don't buy it. The times, though, that you have a workshop or there's some synergy, like you get to buy gear or something with it and then buy the gear and then immediately draw 2 and set 2 aside. That's amazing.
I feel like you really want to be gaining non-terminals with this. So like the time when Innovation seems really sexy is when I'm playing a gainer that's normally terminal, but now Innovation lets me like gain a non-terminal thing, and all of a sudden my turn's not over, right? So like when you get to use Innovation as a village, because that's what it is.
That's fantastic, yes.
Yeah, that's when Innovation, I think, is best.
Like,
I think that's narrow, but that's when it's good.
If it did that stuff every game, it would be like a 9 for me. The fact that...
I'd give it a higher number, yeah.
The fact that it does nothing like half the time and still gets an above-average rating should, I think, bear testament to how good I think this is.
Yeah, like what you don't want to do is buy this and then like, in my buy phase, I'm going to buy a smithy.
Yeah.
And then you get to play that smithy in the middle of your buy phase after you're like done playing treasures and you're in the middle of buying stuff. So you like buy treasures and now you can't play them.
It doesn't help you.
Don't do that, okay? Innovation's not good there.
But like what you do want to do is buy it and then buy an attack like a militia, because then you don't even have to have the militia in your deck and your opponent still has to look out for being attacked, and that's pretty good. Actually, maybe this should have 2 ratings because.
All right, we're done talking about Innovation. We're moving on. I'm moving the mouse. Pageant.
Pagente.
You spelled it wrong.
Oh, did I?
There we go. I fixed it. Don't worry. Our video listeners, thank you. Pageant is a $3 project. It says, at the end of your buy phase, you may pay $1 for +1 coffers. I gave this a 3 out of 10. And I think the most prolific use of this is at the end of your buy phase, you retroactively spend a coffers so that you could pay $1 to get your coffers back, which is what we did when we were playtesting this. And I was like, Pageant's going to be really great on this board. And then we did that like 6 times over the course of the game. And I was like, that was completely pointless. Pageant. Dominion.
So I actually also gave Pageant a 3. And
nice! Brofist that shit!
That is as low as of a rating. The only other 3 I gave was to Ducat. So that is...
screw that card.
Yeah, that's as low as I think the set goes.
I wanted to give Ducat a 3 because I guess I don't dislike it. Go ahead.
Which is a good thing, right? I mean, I'm glad that there's nothing in the game in this set below a 3. Yeah, so like that means this is a good, well-balanced set. I think this is one of the weakest parts of it. The thing is, coffers are really good. Coffers are better than dollars by a lot. That's why Candlestick Maker is an okay card. But the thing is that like this really hurts your econ early on. Like if you spend the money on this and then it you think about something like, I guess,
you could have gotten a silver instead of this.
Yeah, you could compare it to Save, which is a much more powerful and versatile effect. But, like, man, you could have gotten a silver instead of this, but it really does hurt your econ to get the coffers from it. And later on in the game, at the point where you much more often have extra dollars that you're spending, I question whether or not you want to spend the time to then get this and then have this really mediocre effect for the rest of the game.
This is great for big money, I guess.
Yeah, it's really good if you need to smooth, and it's okay if you need to spike. Like, I could see you saving up for a big turn using this, but that... Man, I have to imagine that buying better cards for your deck is better than that.
Yeah.
So, yeah. This is below average. 3 out of 10.
Alright. Hey, you did it.
Pizza!
Pizza.
Pizza.
This is what we called it all during playtesting. I never called it by its proper name.
Oh, yeah. Pizza. So, Pizza says it's a $5 project, and at the start of your turn, reveal the top card of your deck, and if it's an action, play it.
Yeah. So, this is...
I'm trying to whistle.
Nice. So, I think the synergy between pizza and French fry is something that we would be remiss if we didn't talk about.
Yeah, so the only decks that might not want to grab this are... Like, you buy this, right? This is one of those cards that, like, I can't imagine you don't get this.
Really?
No, like,
There's
unless...
no trashing, you don't get this.
Right, so if you are really... actually, I think if there's no trashing, you still sometimes get it.
Like, that's a hot take right there.
Either you're really action light, or you're playing big money and you don't care, or you have a bunch of actions that you don't want to necessarily play, like mandatory trashers. I think even then, though, like, the fact that you can spend $5 and then have this absurdly efficient deck control that goes off every turn, and, I mean, don't get me wrong, like, if there's no trashing, and you don't get a ton of actions, then no, you don't get this, but I think a lot of I think the vast majority of games are going to buy this, and it's going to be very powerful.
I think vast majority is pretty generous. I think if you have, like, the action density to get this to go off more than half the time, then yeah, go for it. It's pretty fine.
I think even half the time is fine.
Maybe, I guess.
Less than half.
No. Okay. You lost me there. No thank you. I think the hardest part about this is just remembering to do it.
Yeah, that's an IRL game thing.
That was rough.
Yeah, we forgot that this existed so many games.
Yeah, but, like, just remember at the start of your turn, you just pizza, right?
Yeah.
It's fine. You pizza every turn. Pizza in the morning, pizza in the evening, pizza at supper time. When pizza's on a bagel, you can eat pizza anytime. And then once you remember that, then you can just remember pizza every turn. And everything's fine. I wrote down that I gave this a 4, but I'll give it a 5.
Man,
5 out of 10.
This is a 7. Easy.
5 out of 10. Pizza.
This is above average.
I don't like to ruin my pizza with toppings. Cheese pizza only, please and thank you.
All right, so next we have Road Network. You want to read Road Network?
It's a $5 project. It says when another player gains a victory card, plus 1 card.
Yeah, this one's weird.
4 out of 10.
I gave it a 7.
Good for you, man.
So, like, I think that you'll notice that I have rated the projects higher than Adam, just in general, because I think that in the abstract projects are just really strong.
Because you don't have to buy them.
But okay, so why did you give this a 4?
I don't know. Just didn't seem like fantastic.
Dude, okay.
Dude.
Start of your turn. Start of your turn is the best time to draw cards, yeah?
Yeah. But you don't get to decide that.
But the greening phase of the game is now more interesting no matter what kind of board that you're playing. The only time I think that you don't buy this is in one of two extreme cases. Either you have very reliable single game boards where you don't care about the extra draw because you are just buying a province and you are going to do that no matter what. Or B, there's like some game-ending mega turn where one of you is going to get like 5 provinces on your turn and effectively win the game.
Yeah, but if you get a road network, you can be looking at a really big hand when the game ends.
Yeah, right. So
it's pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, so like if you're looking at a mega turn board or you're looking at really efficient single game boards, then maybe you don't get the road network. Any other situation, though, I think you get it. And I think it's really good. It helps your reliability and it helps your point ceiling.
Point ceiling?
Well, not point ceiling. It helps your how many points you're going to score on any given turn. It helps you kick your deck off.
Sure. It's 5 though. 4 out of 10.
7 out of 10.
There you go. Oh, sewers. Where do we do this?
All right, sewers. Sewers is a pretty interesting one. Sewers says, when you trash a card other than with this, you may trash a card from your hand. And the kicker is that it only costs 3. So for $3, when you trash a card other than with this, you may trash a card from your hand. Give this 7 out of 10, and I could be talked into 8.
I gave it a 6. Basically the same thing. It turns bad trashers into good trashers. The end. I have nothing more to say about this card.
I mean, it's like a trasher that you... this isn't going anywhere. It turns bad trashers into good trashers, yeah.
Yeah, I did a great job there, didn't I?
We did a great job there.
Yeah, nice.
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 Nice. Nice. Silo's $4 project says at the start of your turn, discard any number of coppers revealed, and draw that many cards. What did I give this? I give it a 5? What was I smoking? This is like a 7.
I gave it 5.
Same thing, right?
Yeah, I know.
This is super great. Like, it's churning, and at the beginning of the game, just churning past your coppers is usually really good.
I'm gonna... Usually?
Yeah.
The thing is, at the beginning of the game, Copper's the best card in your deck. Like, I mean, yes.
I'm not talking about that beginning. I'm not going to open silos. Just
what I mean...
a little later. Okay?
What I mean by that
like turn
is...
4 or 5.
Sure, and, like, at that point, when you have some other good cards that you want to be playing, it's fine, but, like, you could really be hurting your econ by cycling past your coppers like that, or churning past them, or whatever you want to call it. The idea that... I mean, you need to have a purpose when you buy this.
Okay,
and
do that.
Yeah, have a purpose, have some card that you want to play, but if
7 out of 10.
If that card isn't something like a Trasher or maybe a Traveler or something...
Or a Silver, yeah.
Not a Silver, but...
What do you mean?
Because you discarded Econ to get different Econ.
Yeah, and you get other cards.
I think
like
that...
more copper.
I'm giving this a 5 out of 10. It is good when it's good, I guess. It's good when you have some...
If you can trash estates, then copper is the worst card in your deck. Silos is amazing.
5 out of 10.
And guess what helps you line up your trasher with the estates that you want to trash?
Silver.
Silver. I was just going to say the same thing.
So,
moving on. Sinister Plot. Cost 4.
Sinister Plot.
At the start of your turn, add a token here, or remove your tokens here for +1 card each. The most important thing about this card is that you need to remember to put your token there. And in order to do that, you should be, like, holding the token in your hand when it's not your turn, so that the first thing you do is to put the token there.
This is applying to IRL games. This expansion, as much as I love it, does have a lot of things that you can really easily forget to do.
I remember when we had this problem with duration attacks, and then we realized it's up to the person who plays the attack to enforce that attack actually happens, and that people don't forget it. And then everything was fine. And so, like, you just need a little mnemonic device about all of these things to remember to do stuff. Just like my pizza in the morning, pizza in the evening.
Yeah.
You thought I was kidding. What do you think I'm doing during your turn while you're playing 10,000 action cards? I'm singing the Bagel Bite song, Jake. Dominion.
So the one for the mnemonic device you use for Sinister Plot to make sure you remember to do it is don't forget to do Sinister Plot.
You hold the token in your hand.
Yeah. So, yeah, this only costs 4. Obviously, I think it's pretty bad to open with it, but I'm giving this a 6 out of 10.
I put this down as a 5. This is fantastic. You get it. This is a 7.
I mean,
this is a 7. What was I thinking? Did you mess with my document?
I did, but
okay.
All right. The only reason that I'm not on board with this being a 7 is that it's pretty low impact in terms of what it does turn by turn. It draws you half a card every turn. Obviously, that's the first thing everybody thinks when they... Yeah, it draws you half a card every turn.
No, it draws you n-1 cards every turn, where n is the number of turns you take before you pick it up. It's the same as Native Village.
Yeah, half a card. So you...
Okay,
mean,
half a card every turn. We're
yeah.
good.
So I mean, this is really good in those during the greening phase when you have started to hit 8 and then you hit 7 instead of 8 and then you pop off and make sure you don't miss province. So that's a pretty good situation for it.
That's one good situation for you.
Yeah. I mean,
There's not the only one. Like, this is good pretty much throughout the entire game.
right, and that comes down to projects in general. You just spend this $4 right off the bat, and then you have this persisting benefit that does something for you, regardless of the cards that you do or don't draw. So
It's like a free turn at least once. Because, like, at some point you're going to dud, and then you're just going to have some tokens, and then you don't dud anymore, and you get a turn. And, like, maybe without Sinister Plot you would have lost the game because you dudded, but now you don't lose the game because you got this.
right, you lose the game because you did something else that was stupid. But
Exactly.
it's not because you bought Sinister Plot.
That's right.
So, yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and give this a 6. You know what? No, I'm gonna side with Adam and give this a 7.
Yeah, we both, like, live tribaled this.
Yeah.
We just made it a 7.
Nice.
We did it.
All right.
That was a Survivor reference. If anyone gets that, leave a comment in the comment section.
All right. So we're to what I think is actually another candidate for most powerful card in the set.
It's the last one alphabetically.
Nice.
Nice. Well,
Nice.
project, that is. Star Chart.
Star chart.
It's a $3 project. It says, when you shuffle, you may pick one of the cards to go on top. And a little rules thing with the new shuffly rules, which I think are silly, but we are doing them anyway. If I have 2 cards left in my deck, and I have a star chart, and I'm deciding what to put on top, I don't get to look at those last 2 cards. So we all get to laugh at how bad I am at deck tracking. That's the important thing.
Yeah, and I
Star
did
chart's
laugh quite a few
great.
times.
This is really good.
Yeah, no, this is insanely powerful. I mean, the
I
idea...
can't tell you how many times that, like, my opening buy has missed the shuffle, and I just get so salty.
Well, like,
Never again, Jake. Never again.
yeah, you get the opposite effect of that. It's like you get the effect of having bought more of the card that you want to play in terms of just getting to play it more often. Like, the fact that you get to play a card of your choice at the top of every shuffle, this has compounding value throughout the game. At first, you're just top decking your opening buy, but as the game goes on, you have a more expensive card and you top deck that instead. So, yeah, this is one of the first 4 buys you make, I'm going to say. This is
Yeah, I
something
think it's strange if you don't have this by turn 4.
Yeah. So this is probably a turn 1 or 2 buy, and if it's not turn 1 or 2, if it's not turn 3 or 4, you're probably misplaying. Like, you're probably just not doing something that you could be doing.
That's a bold statement.
I'm standing by it. Like, if you haven't bought Star Chart by turn 5, you have probably made a mistake.
Okay, you softened the language. You said probably. I'm back on board.
Yes. You definitely are playing badly if you haven't bought Star Chart by turn 5.
Oh, come on. Well, why don't you just go all the way? It's definitely correct to get one.
Yes, it's correct to buy Star Chart. No, but, like, the thing is, you could harden the language, and, like, I'm still pretty much with you. Star Chart's really, really powerful.
Oh, man. Jake, you just need to get burned, like, one time really good by saying something like that.
So,
And then you'll be, like, jaded and grizzled like I am.
that's true.
Yeah.
I don't want to be like Adam. No,
Yes,
but
Everyone wants to be like me.
Now-
I am really great.
here's the thing. I am really, really upset about something about Star Chart. And that is a huge missed opportunity. On the table for Star Chart, we don't see the coins from Stash. And that just makes me sad every time I look at it.
That would have been so good.
Yeah, this is the spiritual successor to Stash, which is a terrible card,
They
but
even
this one's amazing.
implemented it online. Jeez.
Yeah,
Sorry,
I mean,
I'm a little salty. Why don't they...
Adam, this is not the time.
You're right. This is not the time.
But yeah,
I mean, this is 7, but it's an 8.
this is a 9. This is, close to a 10, but it's a 9.
Well, I mean, wow, you wouldn't give this a 10. You don't even give Ambassador a 10.
I don't.
Yeah, leave a comment in the comment section. There. Star Chart. It's good.
9 out of 10.
Good. 9 out of 10 for Star Chart?
Yep.
Sweet. Well, this has gone on for a while, yeah?
Yeah, I mean the Nocturne one did too. Yeah,
Yep.
these full set reviews just kind of
You had
take
a lot
of
to
time.
say.
Yeah,
I
in
had
general,
a moderate amount to say.
yeah.
And then I was like trying to make the baby not scream.
The baby had a lot to
and
say.
also making a lot of smart aleck comments.
Yeah,
We all have to do what we're best at.
yeah. So I mean, I really like this set. I'm gonna say that.
I'm a
yeah.
big fan. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty good. It's
I
pretty
think-
decent.
Like Empires is still my favorite, but this is definitely up there.
Yeah. It's good. It's gonna be pretty good.
Yeah, I like how it's supposed to be like a sequel to Guilds, but it kind of feels like a sequel to Dark Ages in a lot of ways too.
Sure.
It's got a lot of stuff that trashes and interacts with the trash.
Everyone likes a good trash arena.
Yeah. It's got cultists.